Chapter 630. Everyone was stunned when they heard Yi Xian's words. And that Di Jun actually stopped. The white-haired woman frowned slightly. Di Jun looked at Yi Xian with a trace of confusion in his eyes. Human, why is this sword in your hands? Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Di Jun stop. This fellow was definitely not someone he could go against right now. Yi Xian said coldly, "Why is it in my hands? Don't you have any idea?" Di Jun frowned. "What do I have?" Yi Xian said angrily, "This is the Soul Clan's treasure. Why is it in my hands? Think about it. Think about it." Di Jun thought for a moment and said, "You stole it." Yi Xian was speechless. Di Jun felt that his idea was correct, so his gaze gradually became hostile. At this moment, the soul-suppressing sword suddenly floated in front of him. Soul said, "Di Jun, do you know me?" Soul. Di Jun was stunned. You are Little Soul Lord," Soul said. "Di Jun. He is the successor that Master personally appointed. If you dare to hurt him, Master will definitely not let you off." Master. Di Jun's expression changed when he heard this word. Hades. He naturally could not forget this person. This person was his true master. Di Jun glanced at Yi Xian. "Why did Master choose him?" Soul said, "This is Master's choice. Besides that, he is Gen Zizai's younger brother. If you hurt him, that woman will definitely not let you off." Gen Zizai. When the D-Lord heard these three words, a look of fear appeared in his eyes. In that era, both the Divine Clan and the Nether Clan were extremely afraid of Gen Zizai. When this woman went crazy, she would even slaughter her own clansmen. After a moment of silence, Di Jun looked at the white-haired woman nearby. "I can't hurt him." The white-haired woman smiled. "Sure. Find someone else." Di Jun turned to look at Yuan Yi, who was not far away. In the next moment, he charged towards Yuan Yi. Yuan Yi had an emotionless expression on her face. In the next moment, the staff in her grasp suddenly started to tremble, and then numerous blades of wind gradually appeared here. These blades of wind were sharp like blades, and space was instantly sliced apart in their path. As for Di Jun, he used his physical body to resist it. He charged forward and shattered all the wind blades. When he arrived in front of Yuan Yi suddenly appeared 10,000 feet away. In the next moment, countless bolts of lightning appeared around Di Jun. These bolts of lightning directly drowned Di Jun. Boom boom boom. The surrounding space trembled violently. Not long after, the D-Lord stepped out of the thunderbolts. Then, a powerful force swept towards Yuan Yi. The skinny old man nodded, then looked at Xueqi and said softly, "Closed her eyes and chanted softly with the staff in her hand." The Star-Lord wouldn't have attacked him. Powerful forces gathered from all directions. The situation was in the next moment, she suddenly opened her eyes and pointed to the chaotic mastermind behind all of this. Said to be the strongest after the era of the God Race. A powerful force suddenly erupted of yours is amazing. After the era of the God Race, I've gathered chaotic universes and martial arts civilization was an enough them stopped moving to that pagoda. The space before him suddenly started to give it to me. In the next moment, Yuan was staff lightly. This person was the most dazzling existence. As soon as she finished speaking, because he was the first translucent human in so many years of the God Race. Facial change. Emperor Yi Xian, as soon as he was trapped, who was the first? Numerous bolts of lightning engulfed him like a storm. Xueqi. Emperor However, it wasn't long before Di Jun suddenly roared furiously and shattered the spatial chains. A middle-aged man suddenly appeared behind Xueqi, collided with Yuan. A middle-aged man held Yuan face was emotionless. "I understand now." She opened her left palm, cultivating her own martial master of God Nation. As soon as she chanted martial master, the golden talisman started to tremble violently. When Di Jun arrived around martial master of all the armies in God Nation, the golden talisman 1,000 years ago, mysterious divine martial be able to resist all of you. Most important energy capable of eliminating the world erupted someone within the golden talisman, and all the acts of your kingdom perished. Let's forcefully stopped on the spot. As there are all sorts of accidents in life. The ocean water around the island suddenly shot into the sky. The white-haired woman drowned the Di Jun. Actually, the Di Jun roared madly with fury, and after saying charge out of the ocean, all of you are too strong. There were only 3 ocean waters slowly turned into ice. As soon as she finished speaking, and the
white-haired
woman
woman
had turned into
the
white-haired woman,
and
and still had a faint smile on her face. The white-haired woman still had a faint smile on her face, and Nan Gongwan were left. Yi Xian was silent.
Yuan glanced at the white-haired woman,
and the
then
latter
she
bowed
moved aside
aside
before
leaving.
leaving.
Yi Xian glanced at Nan Gongwan
was a strategist.
You really think I'm easy to bully, right?
After Nan
Suddenly,
Gongwan
the
left,
imperial hound's voice resounded.
the white-haired woman.
Yi Xian
Do you want to
said
fight me?
Yi Xian hurriedly
Let's
gazed
fight
at Yuan.
somewhere else.
Woman smiled.
Watch
The
out,
white-haired
I've prepared
woman
an
smiled.
opponent for you.
Yuan gazed at Yi
As
Xian.
soon as she finished
A moment
speaking,
later,
a
the frozen
skinny
man
man
suddenly
appeared
charged
behind
behind
the
the
ice
ice I won't
prison.
beat
The
you
skinny
to
man
death.
only
Only
had
had
one
one
leg
leg
surrounding
one
one
arm.
and
Rumble.
only 2 or 3 strands of
Yuan
hair on
was
his head.
instantly blasted.
The skinny
Three
old man
kilometers
looked
the
at
tower and
Xueqi
fight.
with
At
a
this
comic
moment, the
expression.
white-haired
The
woman
woman
suddenly
Xueqi
was
was
emanating a
smile.
strange aura. The white-haired woman smiled.
Suddenly said,
"Do you think
as
I'm
she
looking
spoke,
down
she
on you?"
looked at Yi Xian.
No, that little
however,
girl is
you
in
are
danger.
willing to enter the
After
tower
all,
with
Yi
you.
Xian
You're the
gazed
most
at the
monstrous
Di Tower.
swordsman in the
The
history of the
Di Xian
Beast.
fell
Charging
silent.
at Yuan.
He hadn't expected
and it was
that
more
the
than twice
white-haired
as
woman
fast
would
to
actually
actually
be
be willing to
Yuan's
enter the tower with
expression
him.
became
Was she
slightly
too
solemn.
confident?
Don't be so
or
arrogant. I'll deal
She
with
was
that
definitely
too
too confident.
Yi
And the
Xian,
space
this was
before
the
her
white-haired
instant
woman
white-haired
became
woman
silly
did
or
not
man
seem
and
to be a
smiled.
It didn't take long
It
for
seems
countless
like the people of the
mysterious
chaotic
elements to
universe
appear
have
and
forgotten
surround
about
you.
you. And they
Are you
instantly
afraid?
drowned the
Man
Di
said
Jun
softly.
beast.
Xian shook
You
his head.
saved my life in
The
the past,
flames weren't able
so
to
I'll
cause
fight
any
any
lethal
lethal
harm
harm
to
to
the
the
Di
Di
Jun
Jun
beast.
beast.
At this moment, suddenly,
no matter
the
who wins or
white-haired woman
loses,
gazed at
go
Yi
as
Xian
well.
and smiled. Yi Xian
Soul
looked at
suppression
Seven and
sword.
nodded.
I
Come
didn't
in.
expect that.
As soon as he finished
Yi
speaking,
Xian spoke
the
solemnly.
three of them vanished at the
Were
same
you the
time.
one who gave the
Prison
Star-Lord
Pagoda?
orders? The
Within
white-haired
tower.
woman grinned. The
What do you
white-haired woman
think?
looked around and said
Yi
softly,
Xian
fell silent.
Is this something from the
It was
fifth
obvious
dimension?
that it was definitely
Seven
the woman who
sized
gave
up
the
the order.
surroundings as well. At this moment, the white-haired woman's gaze suddenly descended onto Xiao Linger. Xiao Linger looked at the white-haired woman with a wary gaze. The white-haired woman said softly, "Source spirit." Xiao Linger looked at the white-haired woman. "You aren't human." The white-haired woman smiled. "Indeed, I am not human." Xiao Linger hesitated for a moment and said, "Can all of you fight somewhere else?" She was afraid that her spirit tree would be lost if they fought here. The white-haired woman smiled. "If we fight somewhere else, your big brother won't have any chance of winning." Xiao Linger looked at Yi Xian and hesitated for a moment before she said, "Big brother, you can't beat her." She and the white-haired woman were actually the same type, so she could sense how strong the white-haired woman was. The white-haired woman suddenly smiled. "I don't intend to fight him." As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her palm. In an instant, the entire prison pagoda started to tremble. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. This woman wanted to forcefully subdue the prison pagoda? Right at this moment, a woman suddenly appeared in front of the white-haired woman. "Ayu." Ayu looked at the white-haired woman. "Scram." The white-haired woman grinned. "No." Ayu suddenly said, "Return." As soon as he finished speaking, the General Dao Principle, the Dream Dao Principle, and the Space Dao Principle suddenly disappeared into the space between Yi Xian's eyebrows. Not only those 3 Dao Principles, but you also suddenly disappeared into the space between Yi Xian's eyebrows. In an instant, Yi Xian's eyes widened. At this moment, Ayu's voice sounded in his head. "Activate the prison tower." Yi Xian hurried to do as he was told. Soon, the prison tower was activated. An illusionary blood-red character prisoner quietly appeared above the white-haired woman's head. The white-haired woman's expression changed. In the next moment, the white-haired woman left the pagoda. However, the blood-red prisoner character was still above her head. Yi Xian also exited the prison pagoda. He looked at the white-haired woman not far away from him. At this moment, he felt that there was a mysterious power within his body. This power made him feel as if he could control everything. Yi Xian's expression suddenly turned ferocious. But at this moment, the power suddenly disappeared, and Ayu and the Dao laws returned to the pagoda. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, "Don't stop. We'll kill her." You didn't answer. Instead, he returned to the 5th floor. Yi Xian was speechless. Across from Yi Xian, the white-haired woman looked at Yi Xian. "It has indeed recognized you as its master." At this moment, her expression was solemn, because in that instant, she felt danger. Yi Xian looked at Xueqi. "Miss Xueqi, I don't think there's a need. I'm going to waste my breath on her." Seven nodded. She looked at the white-haired girl and in the next moment, she disappeared. Chi! A ray of sword light flashed through the battlefield. At practically the exact same time, the white-haired woman suddenly retreated explosively. She'd retreated 500 kilometers,
but the ray of sword light was still right in front of her.
Meanwhile, the white-haired woman suddenly pressed her palms together. Her palms blocked the ray of sword light, but in the next moment, bang! The white-haired woman instantly retreated a few thousand kilometers. She'd left Yi Xian's field of vision with this retreat. Right at this moment, the space here suddenly became illusory. Yi Xian had a solemn expression on his face. It was caused by that sword strike. This was a space that had been created, but it had actually been unable to endure Xueqi's attack. In next to no time, the space here had become completely illusory, and everyone had appeared in the boundless starry sky.
As for the white-haired woman, she'd suddenly returned to not too far away from Xueqi, and she gazed at her. What a formidable attack!
As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly punched Xueqi from afar. It was a very calm punch, but it contained the might to obliterate the world. Not too far away, Xueqi's face was expressionless. Her body suddenly became illusory, and in the next moment, the terrifying power released by the white-haired woman was suddenly cut apart. At the same time, the white-haired woman was forced back nearly 1,000 miles. As soon as the white-haired woman stopped moving, Xueqi suddenly drew her sword. Hiss! A strand of sword energy tore through the sky. It seemed like it was about to tear the starry sky apart, and it was extremely terrifying. The white-haired woman opened her palm, and then she pressed it forward lightly. All things gather. Rumble! The space in front of her suddenly shook violently, and then a mysterious force instantly blocked that strand of sword energy. Meanwhile, the white-haired woman spoke once more. Split! As soon as she finished speaking, the strand of sword energy was split apart and instantly vanished. Xueqi walked slowly towards the white-haired woman. The white-haired woman chuckled. If you want to defy the heavens, then I'm afraid this little bit of strength isn't enough. Xueqi suddenly vanished. The white-haired woman's smile froze, and in the next moment, her figure became illusory. Meanwhile, Xueqi had appeared behind her. Dead. Yi Xian was stunned not too far away. He wouldn't have died just like that, right? Meanwhile, the white-haired woman had suddenly appeared where Xueqi had been standing just now. Xueqi turned around to look at the white-haired woman, and the latter spoke softly. You actually killed one of my clones. Clone. Not far away. Yi Xian's expression froze. He didn't expect that the one that Xueqi killed was actually the white-haired woman's clone. Then, there was a problem. Was the one in front of him a clone or the main body? Yi Xian looked at Xueqi, and she walked towards the white-haired woman. She walked really slowly. The white-haired woman looked at Xueqi and smiled. I have to say that you are indeed the most monstrous existence in the chaotic universe. Even if you were placed in the God race era, you would be able to look down on everyone. Xueqi said softly, this world doesn't need a Tendo. The white-haired woman smiled. Without me there will be other Tendo. There will also be other heavenly Daos, like you. If I lose, you will be the next heavenly Dao. Xueqi shook her head. I won't be a Tendo. The white-haired woman looked at Xueqi. Do you know how greedy you humans are? The destruction of one world after another is all because of the greed of you humans. If I wasn't controlling it, this chaotic universe would have been destroyed long ago. Xueqi looked at the white-haired woman. The woman said softly, humans have to survive. To survive we have to cultivate. To cultivate we have to absorb spiritual energy. There is no other way. The white-haired woman laughed coldly. So this universe should be sacrificed? Xueqi shook her head. There is no right or wrong. Everyone has to survive. Either you die or I die. Unless all humans and living beings die, otherwise, the universe will head towards destruction. The white-haired woman looked at Xueqi. Without you humans, the universe will live longer. Xueqi said, you don't have the right to comment because you are also absorbing the source of this universe. Moreover, you control the source and some special spiritual energy. You are no different from us humans. The white-haired woman said coldly, if I don't cultivate, then won't I be slaughtered by you humans? Xueqi said, if humans don't cultivate, then they will be slaughtered by you. When she said that, she looked at the white-haired woman. I am a human, I am the ruler of the God country. I will fight for the people of the God country and stand on the side of humans. The moment she said that, she pulled out her sword. A strand of sword energy flashed through the battlefield. In an instant, the white-haired woman's body turned illusory. But in the next moment, the illusory body condensed once more. The white-haired woman looked at Xueqi and was about to speak when Xueqi suddenly attacked. The sword slashed through the sky and the white-haired woman's body was instantly split into two. But in the next moment, her body condensed once more. Xueqi stopped. The white-haired woman looked at Xueqi and smiled. Actually, you are right. We are on different sides. I can tell you that after I kill you, I will reorganize the chaotic universe. At that time, I will make sure that there are no humans in this universe. Humans are so annoying. Xueqi said softly. Then you have to kill me first. The white-haired woman nodded. I will definitely kill you. You are the most annoying. The moment she finished speaking, she suddenly pressed her hands together. In an instant, the space in front of her was torn apart. In next to no time, a pitch-black hand grabbed out from the torn space. Xueqi was expressionless as she raised her hand and slashed. It was a very calm slash. However, it was this slash that directly shattered the hand. At the same time, a thread of sword energy pierced through the white-haired woman's forehead. After the sword energy pierced through the white-haired woman's forehead, it didn't stop and tore through the sky. In next to no time, it disappeared into the starry sky. At this moment, the white-haired woman's illusory body had condensed once more. Seeing this, Yi Xian's face sank. Is this woman unkillable? The white-haired woman looked at Xueqi and smiled. I am the Tendo of this universe. As long as this universe is not destroyed, I will not die. No matter how powerful your sword Dao is, you can't kill me. Do you understand? Yi Xian suddenly asked, how did you learn this move? I want to learn it too. The white-haired woman looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Yi Xian, after I deal with her, I will deal with you. I still remember how you forcefully took my source energy that day. Yi Xian was speechless. Right at this moment, Seven suddenly said, lend me your sword for a moment. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he flicked his finger and the executing heaven sword appeared in front of Xueqi. Xueqi held the executing heaven sword and looked at the white-haired woman. I don't know if this sword can kill you. At this moment, the smile on the white-haired woman's face disappeared. She was extremely cold. The white-haired woman stared at Yi Xian with a gaze that was like a sword that could kill. At the side, Xueqi suddenly said, sometimes, external objects need to be used. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. Also. Chapter 632. Executioner Heaven. When Xueqi held the sword, the expression of the white-haired woman finally changed. She really couldn't be killed in this chaotic universe. However, it would be a completely different story if this sword was included. Executioner Heaven. If the soul-suppressing sword was said to be specialized against souls, then Executioner Heaven was specialized against spirit beasts like Tendo. Just at that moment, Seven suddenly disappeared. Hiss! A ray of sword light flashed through the battlefield. Not far away, the expression of the white-haired woman changed. In the next instant, she had already retreated 1,000 li away. She didn't dare to take Xueqi's attack head-on. Xueqi walked slowly towards the woman. She walked very slowly, but her figure was gradually becoming ethereal. She was swift to the extreme. Yi Xian turned around to look at where the white-haired woman was. The white-haired woman was still retreating. She still didn't dare to take Xueqi's attack head-on. Meanwhile, Xueqi stopped moving, and she suddenly turned around to look at the Truth Lord Beast. At this moment, Yuan Yi was locked in fierce battle with the Truth Lord Beast. Xueqi glanced at the woman, and then she swung her sword towards the right. 3 kilometers away. Bang! The Truth Monarch Beast was instantly sent flying by a sword light. This time, it was sent flying for thousands of feet. As soon as it stopped moving, its entire body cracked apart and blood sprayed out. The Truth Lord Beast gazed at Xueqi with deep fear in its eyes. Its defense was extremely terrifying, but in front of this little girl, its physical defense was like paper. Especially when she was holding Executioner Heaven. Xueqi paid no attention to the Truth Lord Beast. She gazed at the woman who was staring at her. Xueqi didn't speak as well. She suddenly vanished, and then a ray of light flashed. It was swift to the extreme. The white-haired woman's eyes instantly narrowed when she saw this attack, and then she retreated explosively in the next moment. However, the ray of sword light was like a maggot that followed her closely. At this time, the white-haired woman flipped her palm, and a black spear appeared in her hands. She then thrust it out viciously. Rumble! The surrounding space violently trembled, and the spear in the white-haired woman's hand instantly shattered. The powerful force caused her to instantly retreat nearly 1,000 feet. The white-haired woman stared fixedly at Xueqi. She reached out, and in an instant, a black ruler appeared in her palm. At this time, Xueqi suddenly appeared in front of the white-haired woman. The white-haired woman swung the long ruler in her hand. Xueqi's sword came out. Boom! In the blink of an eye, a powerful force exploded in front of them. The white-haired woman retreated repeatedly, and she retreated for over 10 kilometers. As soon as she stopped moving, the ruler in her hand directly cracked apart. Although it wasn't completely broken, it was covered in cracks. It could be said that it was completely scrapped. Seeing this, the white-haired woman's face sank. This ruler was no ordinary Tao realm treasure. It was an ancient Tao realm treasure. However, it still could not stop that sword. The white-haired girl looked at Seven. At that moment, Seven suddenly disappeared. She was too quick. The white-haired woman's body trembled and she disappeared. Xueqi stopped and frowned slightly. She looked around and found that the white-haired woman was no longer there. Where did she go? Seven slowly closed her eyes. The Oracle Sect. After a short moment, Nangongwan's voice resounded in Seven's mind. She hasn't left. Seven looked around and said softly, "You aren't coming out?" There was no response. Seven suddenly turned around and swung her sword. Chi! Not far away, the 5 elements wood branch was suddenly slashed into pieces. Seven didn't stop. She swung her sword again. Thousands of meters away, a ball of flames instantly exploded and turned into nothingness. In an instant, the 5-element Holy Spirit was killed by her. As for the remaining Emperor Xueqi and the others, they retreated and didn't continue fighting. Everyone was looking at Seven, who was holding the heavenly retribution. Seven walked slowly towards Emperor Xueqi and the others. "Do you know where she is?" Emperor Xueqi said solemnly, "Sir, she has become one with this universe. If you kill her, it will severely affect this world." Seven said softly, "You don't have to worry about this. My theocracy will take care of everything." Emperor Xueqi glanced at Seven and didn't speak another word. Suddenly, the starry sky in the surroundings started to tremble. In next to no time, numerous strange barriers of light appeared in the surroundings, and they were like a cage that locked everyone here within it. Seven raised her hand and swung her sword. Hiss! A ray of light slashed against the barrier of light. Bang! The barrier of light shook violently and cracked apart, but it returned to normal in an instant. A formation. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings, and there were strange talismans flickering on the barriers of light. Suddenly, Xiangqing said, "Shit! Our lifespans are flowing away." Their lifespans were flowing away. Everyone here was shocked. But right at this moment, Emperor Xueqi and the others suddenly vanished. Moreover, the lifespans of everyone within the formation were flowing away at an extremely swift pace. Seven took a step forward and swung her sword. Hiss! A barrier of light was instantly split apart, but it instantly healed in the next moment. Seven's beautiful brows knit together slightly when she witnessed this scene. Meanwhile, she suddenly gazed at Yi Xian, the spatial Tao Law. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he withdrew the spatial Tao Law. Seven said, "Change the space here." Yi Xian nodded, and then he started to utilize the spatial Tao Law to change the space in the surroundings. But it didn't take long for a mysterious force to appear in the surroundings, and it started to consolidate the space in the surroundings. However, Yi Xian, who possessed the space Tao Law, easily reorganized the space in the field. After the space was reorganized, the barriers of light in the surroundings started to break apart layer by layer, and it didn't take long for them to vanish without a trace. Xiangqing and the others gazed at Yi Xian when they witnessed this scene. Needless to say, Yi Xian had surprised them quite a bit. Suddenly, the white-haired woman appeared before Yi Xian and the others. She gazed at Yi Xian, the Tao Law of the 5th dimension. Only the Tao Law of the 5th dimension could destroy her spatial Tao Law with such ease. Yi Xian nodded, "It's the Tao Law of the 5th dimension." The white-haired woman gazed at Yi Xian. "You're really annoying. I should have shown myself to deal with you." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Actually, I don't have any ill intentions towards you. Really, I only came here to fulfill my promise to Xueqi.
However, I didn't expect that you'd already been messing with me.
I don't understand. Is the temptation of this pagoda really that great? Even an existence like you is interested in it. The white-haired woman said flatly. Not great? Then give it to me. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the prison pagoda appeared in his hand. Yi Xian looked at the white-haired woman. See? I wouldn't give it to you even if I threw it away. As he spoke, he tossed the prison pagoda down.
Everyone. The white-haired woman looked at Yi Xian, and her face was terrifyingly dark.
At this moment, the prison pagoda suddenly transformed into a black light that smashed into Yi Xian. Bang! Yi Xian was instantly sent flying. The prison pagoda did not give up, and continued to smash towards Yi Xian. In the distance, Yi Xian hurriedly said, Big brother, it's just a joke. Don't be like this. Bang bang bang. In the distant horizon, explosions rang out incessantly. 7 looked at the white-haired woman. It's time to end this. As she spoke, the executing heaven sword in her hand suddenly trembled violently. In the next instant, the white-haired woman's body trembled in fear. Executing heaven's sword. This sword was used to punish the heavens in the past. 7 was about to attack, but at this moment, in the distant horizon, a powerful aura suddenly appeared. Seeing this, the white-haired woman's lips curled up. It seems like you can't kill me. 7 raised her head to look at the distant horizon, and in the vast horizon, a figure was rushing over. The strength of that aura caused the expressions of everyone behind 7 to turn solemn. 7 raised her head to look at that figure and said softly, It seems like you're prepared. The white-haired woman laughed. What do you think? 7 shook her head and laughed. You think you can stop me like this? Naive. If I want to kill someone, who can stop me? Is that so? At this moment, that powerful aura had already appeared in front of 7. It was a middle-aged man, and at his waist, there was a sword. South Sword Mountain. He was the sect master of Sword Sect when it was at its peak. P.S. There's more. Chapter 633. South Sword Mountain. Nangong Wan's expression sank when she saw this person. She had never expected that such a young person would actually appear here. This wasn't someone from this era. Jian Nanshan looked at 7. Just as he was about to speak, 7 suddenly took a step forward and slashed with his sword. Chi! Something was being torn apart. The moment Xueqi attacked, the sword on South Sword Mountain's waist also unsheathed. The sword was like lightning, incomparably swift. Boom! A wave of sword light erupted in front of Xueqi and Jian Nanshan. In an instant, Jian Nanshan retreated thousands of feet. Xueqi had also retreated 1,000 zhang. Jian Nanshan looked at 7 and for the first time, a solemn expression appeared in his eyes. Sword God. He wasn't shocked that 7 was the sword god, but that 7 was young. Reaching the level of a sword god at such a young age could no longer be described as terrifying. 7 still didn't say anything and she suddenly disappeared. Buzz! The cry of a sword split the sky. Not far away, Jian Nanshan narrowed his eyes. His right hand gripped the hilt of his sword, and in the next moment, he pulled it out. Chi! A wisp of sword light slashed down from above. Meanwhile, Xueqi's voice resounded abruptly, Break! As soon as Xueqi finished speaking, Jian Nanshan's sword light instantly shattered, and so did Jian Nanshan's sword. Seeing this scene, the white-haired woman not far away frowned slightly. Jian Nanshan looked at the sword in 7's hand. Good sword. 7 was expressionless. She waved her hand and the executing heaven sword flew back to Yi Xian. 7 looked at Jian Nanshan. I won't bully you. As soon as she finished speaking, she lightly stomped her right foot. Chi! Beneath his feet, sword light flashed. In the distance, Jian Nanshan opened his palm and a wisp of sword light flew out from his palm. The sword light was as fast as lightning, tearing through space. Boom! In front of the two of them, 2 sword lights instantly exploded. Right at this moment, Xueqi suddenly leaped up. In the next moment, a beam of sword light slashed down from above Jian Nanshan's head. Boom! In the blink of an eye, Jian Nanshan retreated tens of thousands of feet. At this moment, Xueqi suddenly pointed at Jian Nanshan. Slash!
As the word fell, a sword light suddenly chopped down from the top of Jian Nanshan's head. In the distance, Jian Nanshan grinned. Interesting. As soon as he finished speaking, he stomped his right foot. Rumble. The entire starry sky trembled violently. In the next moment, he transformed into a ray of sword light that shot into the sky. Boom. In the air, Xueqi's sword light shattered. But at that moment, Xueqi suddenly disappeared. Boom. In the distance, Jian Nanshan had instantly retreated tens of thousands of feet. But before he could stop, a sword light instantly tore apart Jian Nanshan's position. Boom. Jian Nanshan retreated again. This retreat was 1,000 miles. At this time, Seven's eyes slowly closed. After a moment of silence, she suddenly opened her eyes and pointed at Jian Nanshan. One sword destruction. Chi. A strand of sword light as thin as a hair flew out from Xueqi's fingertip. Wherever the sword light passed, the space immediately became illusory. The expressions of everyone in the surroundings instantly became extremely solemn when they witnessed this scene. Because the illusory space had disappeared. Even Tendo's space Dao Law couldn't repair it. Jian Nanshan's expression instantly turned solemn when he saw Xueqi's sword. He still didn't take out the sword at his waist. Because Xueqi didn't use a sword either. If he did, then he would lose in terms of imposing aura. Everyone watched as Jian Nanshan slowly closed his eyes, and then an illusory sword suddenly appeared in front of him. In the next moment, he tapped the hilt of the illusory sword with his finger. OM. A sword howl resounded. The illusory sword was blasted flying. It seemed like it intended to pierce through the starry sky, and it was extremely formidable. Meanwhile, Xueqi's sword light arrived before him. Bang! The entire starry sky suddenly shook violently. In an instant, Jian Nanshan's illusory sword exploded into pieces, but Xueqi's sword light was still there. The sword light shot straight at Jian Nanshan. Jian Nanshan's expression remained unchanged. He took a step forward and tapped the sword light with his finger. Bang! The sword light was forcibly stopped by his finger. Suddenly, Xueqi appeared in front of Jian Nanshan. Jian Nanshan's eyes narrowed slightly. In the next moment, the space around them was covered in strands of sword light. This continued for around 15 minutes before the sword light vanished, and then Xueqi walked out from within it. The white-haired woman's face instantly turned gloomy when she witnessed this scene. On the other hand, the experts of the God Kingdom heaved sighs of relief. The sword light behind Xueqi dispersed, and Jian Nanshan appeared before their eyes. At this moment, Jian Nanshan's arms had been severed, but he was still alive. Jian Nanshan gazed at Xueqi. Why didn't you kill me? Xueqi stopped moving. Why did you protect Tendo? Jian Nanshan fell silent for a moment before he said, I owed her a favor all those years ago. Xueqi nodded. You've repaid her kindness so you can leave. Jian Nanshan asked, Why didn't you kill me? Xueqi spoke softly. There aren't many swordsmen left. There aren't many formidable swordsmen left. Jian Nanshan took a deep and long glance at Xueqi before he turned around and left. After Jian Nanshan left, Xueqi gazed at the white-haired woman. Besides myself, no one can stop me from killing you. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly vanished. The white-haired woman's eyes narrowed slightly, and then her body suddenly became ethereal. In the next moment, numerous afterimages appeared around Xueqi. Rumble! The entire starry sky started to tremble violently as strands of powerful force surged out incessantly. The entire starry sky started to seethe, and it was extremely terrifying. However, as soon as Xueqi's sword slashed down, the afterimages instantly vanished without a trace, and the white-haired woman had retreated over 10 kilometers away. She stared fixedly at Xueqi. If I die, then the quintessence energy of the chaotic universe will vanish along with me. At that time, no one from the chaotic universe will be able to break through into the Imperial Emperor realm. Xueqi walked slowly towards the white-haired woman. Are you threatening me? The white-haired woman smiled. You can think of it that way. Xueqi spoke softly. I thought that you would die with some backbone. I never expected that. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly vanished. Hiss! A ray of light tore through the sky. Emperor Shi Yuan spoke softly. You leave first. As soon as he finished speaking, he stood in front of the white-haired woman and slowly clenched his right fist. A moment later,
He suddenly smashed his fist forward. Rumble! The space in front of Emperor Shi Yuan 1 exploded apart, but it wasn't able to stop that ray of light. Bang! Emperor Shi Yuan 1 instantly retreated explosively while countless rays of light sliced through his body. When Emperor Shi Yuan 1 stopped, only his soul remained. Emperor Shi Yuan 1 stared fixedly at Xueqi with deep fear in his eyes. However, the white-haired woman didn't flee. There were 3 old men behind her. She suddenly said, "All of you can leave." They gazed at the white-haired woman and the latter smiled. "You've repaid your kindness. You don't owe me anything." The 3 old men exchanged glances, and then they turned around and left. They had no chance of winning. After all, practically no expert in this expanse of space could stop the ruler of the chaotic universe. Once the 3 old men left, the white-haired woman gazed at Xueqi and smiled. "It won't be that easy to kill me." As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her palm. In an instant, the surrounding space started to tremble violently, and it didn't take long for countless strands of spirit energy to converge towards her. It didn't take long for her aura to rise explosively. The expressions of everyone here instantly changed when they witnessed this scene. Is the Tendo going to detonate himself? What would happen if the Tendo detonated himself? The entire chaotic universe would definitely be affected. Xueqi's face was expressionless. Her left hand was already on the sword at her waist. No. Just then, a voice suddenly came from the end of the space. As soon as the voice finished, a man appeared in the air. His speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Yi Xian and the others. The newcomer had a long saber and a sword at his waist. Yi Zhantian. Saber and sword duel master. With Yi Zhantian's appearance, the white-haired woman immediately stopped. Seeing that the white-haired woman had stopped, Yi Zhantian's expression relaxed. Your Excellency Tendo, your life concerns the safety of the entire chaotic universe. How can you detonate yourself? The white-haired woman smiled. If I wasn't forced into a dead end, why would I take this path? Hearing this, Yi Zhantian turned to look at Xueqi. He was about to speak when Xueqi suddenly took a quick step forward and slashed down with her sword. Yi Zhantian narrowed his eyes and suddenly drew his sword and slashed. Hum. A sword's hum resounded, and a wave of sword light exploded between the two. In an instant, Yi Zhantian was knocked back hundreds of feet. After stopping, Yi Zhantian's eyes were solemn. At such a young age, your swordsmanship has already reached such a level. Back then, he could also be considered a genius. But now, after seeing Xueqi, he realized that the person in front of him was a true genius. Xueqi looked up at the sky and said softly, "Tendo, how many people did you call?" The white-haired woman looked at Xueqi and did not speak. Xueqi chuckled. "I'll wait. When the time comes, we'll deal with them together. Otherwise, it'll be too troublesome." Not far away, Yi Zhantian looked at Xueqi. "Your Excellency, don't you think you're a little too arrogant?" Xueqi looked at Yi Zhantian. "Your name is Yi Zhantian. I heard that you're a sword and saber duel master?" Yi Zhantian was expressionless. "Why?" Xueqi chuckled. "Do you deserve the word duel?" Yi Zhantian narrowed his eyes and was about to speak when Xueqi suddenly pointed a finger. "Retreat!" A ray of sword light flashed across the battlefield. In the distance, Yi Zhantian suddenly pulled out his sword. Boom! A ray of sword light suddenly exploded. Xueqi was already at Yi Zhantian's position. At this moment, Yi Zhantian had already retreated thousands of feet away. Not only that, but the sword in his hand was also broken. Yi Zhantian was silent. Xueqi slowly walked toward Yi Zhantian. "Come, let me see your sword." Coincidentally, my god nation also has 2 sword users. Let them see. Hearing Xueqi's words, Yan Dao suddenly walked out. "Your Majesty, let me fight with him." Xueqi shook her head. "I don't want to waste time." As she spoke, she looked at the white-haired woman not far away. "Today you must die." "Is that so?" A voice suddenly came from beside Xueqi. Everyone in the field was shocked, because no one saw when the person next to Xueqi appeared. Who was it? Chapter 634. To Xueqi's right stood a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man wore a gray robe, his long hair trailing over his shoulders,
mixed with some white strands. He wore a pair of straw sandals. At this moment, the middle-aged man was looking at Xueqi, his expression calm.
Zhou Yafu.
At this moment, Nangong Wan, who stood beside Xueqi, suddenly called out. As soon as she said this, the experts of the divine nation became serious.
Wu Yuan's Zhou Yafu.
This name was famous even in the divine nation. Because Zhou Yafu had been to the divine nation and challenged many of its experts. In the end, Zhou Yafu fought with the divine nation's lord, but the outcome was unknown. Apart from the divine nation, Zhou Yafu was like a god in the other three desolate worlds. When he was alive, Wu Yuan was at its peak. Wu Yuan at that time completely suppressed the Order Alliance, the Tang clan, and the Demon clan. Just one person. And Zhou Yafu was known as the best fighter under the starry sky. The experts of the divine nation had never thought that Zhou Yafu would come back. Zhou Yafu looked at Xueqi. Back then, I saw a divine lord from your divine nation, and he was indeed amazing. But I never thought that after so many years, an even more monstrous genius would appear in your divine nation. Little girl, the old man admits that in terms of talent, no one in this chaotic universe can compare to you, except for that Jian Zizai from the divine clan. But you are still too young. Xueqi smiled and glanced at the white-haired woman. I also never thought that the Tendo here would have so many people protecting him. The white-haired woman was expressionless. I am not allowed to have some friends? Xueqi smiled and said, It seems that the slaughter of the heavenly Tao in my divine kingdom had a great impact on you. Hearing this, the white-haired woman's eyes gradually turned cold. The divine nation's Tendo. In this world, there were actually two Tendo origins. She and the other Tendo were born together. But back then, that Wu Anning from the divine nation unified the eastern wasteland world. Not only did he sweep away some sects and families in the divine nation, he also targeted the divine nation's Tendo. The Tendo was naturally not weak, but that Wu Anning was even more terrifying. That year, the divine kingdom's Tendo fell. The god kingdom's Tendo source was completely controlled by the god kingdom, which was why the god kingdom was so powerful. All those years ago, if it wasn't for the sudden appearance of that woman in a plain dress with a black tower, she would probably not have been able to survive until now. And after that, she knew that God Nation would make a comeback one day. As such, she also began to cultivate and befriend human experts, helping many people with monstrous talent. As a Tendo, if she was willing to befriend others, she would naturally be able to rope in many powerful human beings. After all, she controlled the origin of Tendo. However, she had still underestimated the strength of this generation's divine master. At the side, Zhou Yafu looked at Seven. Let's fight first. Seven nodded. Okay. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly drew her sword. A sword pierced through the air. In the distance, Zhou Yafu punched out. Rumble. In an instant, a powerful force blasted everyone here over 10 kilometers away, and even Xueqi was pushed almost 300 m back. This was the first time Xueqi had retreated. The expressions of the experts of God Nation turned solemn. This was because Zhou Yafu had not taken a single step back. Seven looked at Zhou Yafu. 1 strong to defeat 10. You've reached the peak of transcendent martial god. No, I should say that you've taken half a step. Zhou Yafu nodded. I've been doing nothing all these years. Other than cultivating, I've only made a little progress in martial arts. Seven nodded. Then take a sword from me too. As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her palm, and a strand of sword energy appeared in her palm. Zhou Yafu was expressionless as he slowly clenched his right hand. Seven looked at Zhou Yafu. This sword technique has been in my head since I was born, and I rarely use it. It's called Seeking Defeat. As soon as she finished speaking, the strand of sword energy in Seven's palm suddenly disappeared. Almost at the same time, Seven's face turned pale. The moment the strand of sword energy flew out, Zhou Yafu's eyes narrowed, and he punched out. As he punched out, the space in front of him suddenly began to spin. One punch to change the laws of heaven and earth. However, Seven's strand of sword energy pierced through his arm and through his chest. Bang! In front of everyone's eyes, Zhou Yafu instantly retreated nearly 1,000 miles. On the other hand, Seven was blasted back repeatedly by Zhou Yafu's punch as well. But she quickly stopped, and then an illusory sword appeared above her. At the moment this illusory sword appeared, the expressions of everyone in the surroundings had changed.
especially the white-haired woman. She knew that she'd underestimated this little girl. On the other hand, Yi Xian had a solemn expression on his face as well. 7 is definitely going to be serious. But it's normal. After all, Zhou Yafu is strong enough. Zhou Yafu's eyes narrowed slightly. At this moment, there was a solemn expression in his eyes. Right at this moment, the nearby white-haired woman suddenly said, "Forget it." Everyone gazed at the white-haired woman. She smiled. "I choose to leave." 7 gazed at the white-haired woman. The white-haired woman continued, "If the battle continues, then God Nation will definitely win. But it'll definitely be a Pyrrhic victory, right?" Zhou Yafu spoke solemnly. "It hasn't come to that." The white-haired woman shook her head. "We can't stop her. Even if we can stop her now, what about the future?" "The future?" Zhou Yafu fell silent. 7 is only a little over 10 years old. What about when she's 20 or 30? At that time, would anyone be able to stop her? So, the only way to stop her was to eliminate her now. However, even someone as strong as Zhou Yafu didn't dare say that he could kill 7. Zhou Yafu sighed softly, and then he gazed at 7. "Even though she has grasped the Tendo quintessence of the chaotic universe, you should know that she hasn't enslaved all living beings. Moreover, with her here to suppress and control the number of experts, the chaotic universe will be able to survive for a long time." 7 chuckled. "The Tendo quintessence has always belonged to all living beings." Zhou Yafu spoke solemnly. "Then do you know that humans are greedy by nature? Once all the Tendo quintessence is returned to the chaotic universe, then it's very likely that everyone will devour it without restraint. At that time, the Tendo quintessence will be completely absorbed, and the chaotic universe won't be able to produce any more Emperor Realm experts." 7 shook her head. "You're wrong." Zhou Yafu looked at 7, and 7 continued. "She grasped the Tendo quintessence for herself. Not only that, but under her interference, the chaos below will never end, and she'll control everything from above." At this point, she looked at the white-haired woman. "You think of yourself as a god, as the master of the chaotic universe. My theocracy doesn't want a god. As for the quintessence, don't worry, my theocracy will take care of it. Perhaps we can't make everything fair, but we'll make sure that every talented and hard-working person has a chance to reach Emperor Realm. Many people don't lack hard work or talent, they lack opportunities." At this time, Yi Xian suddenly spoke up. "You're right, if I had Tendo quintessence, I would have reached Emperor Realm long ago." "Everyone," the white-haired woman glanced at Yi Xian. "City Lord Yi, keep jumping around. You don't have many good days left." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "What do you mean?" The white-haired woman replied flatly. "What do I mean? There are a lot of people who want that treasure of yours." Yi Xian remained silent. Many people wanted his tower, and they were all very powerful people. The white-haired woman had said that this tower would bring him many benefits, but it would also bring him endless trouble. What a disaster! Yi Xian sighed. "Xiao Ta, don't you have anything to say?" The prison pagoda shook slightly, and Xiao Ling'er's voice rang out. "It's said to move the 6th floor away." "Xiao Ta, Yi Xian," at this moment 7 suddenly said, "either leave or die." The white-haired woman fell silent. She was definitely unwilling to leave just like that. But if she didn't leave, Zhou Yafu alone wouldn't be able to stop 7 and theocracy. After all, theocracy was so strong, so how could it not have a trump card? Right at this moment, a figure suddenly flashed over from the distant horizon. Soon, a woman appeared in the field. Seeing the person, the experts of theocracy's expressions turned serious. Mu Nanji. The woman in front of them was the Tang clan's Mu Nanji, the most outstanding clan leader in the history of the Tang clan. Mu Nanji, Zhou Yafu, Yi Zhantian, and Jian Nanshan. It could be said that all 3 legendary figures of the wasteland world had appeared over the years. After Mu Nanji appeared, her eyes fell on 7 and she smiled. "We meet again." 7 nodded. Mu Nanji smiled. "Let me tell you my opinion. I think it's not a bad thing for the chaotic universe to be unified because it means the end of the wars. The people under us don't have to live in endless wars every day." But then she looked at 7. "But have you ever thought that if the future ruler of your theocracy acts arbitrarily and selfishly, then the people of the world will live a life worse than death?" Nan Gongwan suddenly said.
Clan leader Mu, don't worry. Our theocracy's affairs are handled by the cabinet. His Majesty won't interfere. Moreover, as the Lord of Theocracy, he won't care about these things. Our cabinet is supervised by the Overwatch Council. Even if we want to mess around, we can't. We can't guarantee that the chaotic universe will be like this for generations, but at least for a long time in the future, the chaotic universe under the rule of our theocracy will only get better and better. Then she looked at Mu Nanji. The problem now is that we don't need the Tendo. We don't need the Tendo. Mu Nanji shook her head and looked at Seven. If you really care about the chaotic universe and the people of the world, then I think it's necessary for her to exist. Seven asked, what do you mean? Mu Nanji knew. Her existence can be used to supervise your theocracy. Seven was silent. At that moment, Seven suddenly looked up into the depths of the starry sky. Almost at the same time, Mu Nanji, Zhou Yafu, and the others also looked up. There, the starry sky was trembling. Soon, a giant appeared in everyone's sight. The giant carried a tombstone that was nearly 1,000 feet long. On the tombstone, 2 large blood-red words were extremely dazzling. Yi Xian. At that moment, the prison pagoda in Yi Xian's body began to tremble violently. At the same time, a Yu's voice rang out in his mind. They found me so quickly? Yi Xian said in a low voice. Are they looking for me? A Yu said. No. Yi Xian froze. At this moment, a Yu said. They're here to kill you. Yi Xian. P.S. There's more. Chapter 635. Along with the appearance of the giant, the expressions of everyone here had become solemn. Even Mu Nanji and Zhou Yafu's eyes were filled with a grave expression. In the starry sky, the giant looked down. Soon, his gaze fell on Yi Xian. Yi Xian. Everyone in the field looked at Yi Xian one after another. He was here for Yi Xian. Yi Xian fell silent. The world prison pagoda in his body was trembling. Xiao Linge said. It said run. Run. Yi Xian said in a deep voice. Miss Yu, what the hell is this thing? Is it from the 5th dimension? Yu fell silent for a moment, then said. It's not from the 5th dimension, but it's from a place closest to the 5th dimension. It's also the most powerful universe in your 4th dimension. Yi Xian frowned. Another universe? Yu said. The black-yellow great world. Yi Xian said in a deep voice. What is that place? Yu said. It's a place that has coveted the 5th dimension for a long time. Until now, at least 5 people have forcibly broken through the 5th dimension. Yi Xian asked, did they succeed? Yu said. No. But you might not know what that means. For example, only the owner of the sword at the top of the pagoda is qualified to enter the 5th dimension. Because to enter the 5th dimension, one must first pass 3 trials. The first trial is to sever all karma from the past and present lives. Only then can one's body and soul escape the restrictions of the 4th dimension. Yi Xian asked again, with this pagoda, one doesn't need to pass the so-called 3 trials? Yu said, in theory yes. This stupid pagoda is in the 5th dimension. In any case, if you want to go to the 5th dimension, it's relatively easy. It's like cheating. But I don't recommend you go. Yi Xian was curious. Why? Yu said, your 4th dimension is pretty good. Why must you go to the 5th dimension? In any case, I don't plan on going back. Yi Xian said in a deep voice. Are there a lot of 5th dimensional experts? Yu said. I don't know how to tell you this. In any case, don't think too much about it because you might just be a passerby in this damned pagoda. Once it recovers, it will definitely kill you first. Yi Xian was speechless. The pagoda of prisons suddenly trembled. Xiao Linger said. It said it won't. Brother, don't listen to Big Sister Ayu. Big Sister Ayu is very bad. At this time, Ayu suddenly rushed out of the 5th floor, grabbed the world prison pagoda, and gave it a vicious beating. In the depths of the starry sky, the giant looked down at Yi Xian. In the next moment, he threw a punch at Yi Xian. As he swung his fist, an earth-shattering pressure crushed toward Yi Xian. This pressure was so strong that it caused the expressions of everyone here to change. This punch was aimed at Yi Xian, but its formidable force enveloped everyone here. Moreover, if this punch were to descend, the world below would definitely be affected. This was an indiscriminate attack. Xueqi frowned slightly when she saw this, and then she transformed into a ray of light that shot into the sky. In the sky, a ray of light slashed down on the powerful pressure. Bang! The entire starry sky trembled, but the pressure didn't vanish. Moreover, Xueqi fell swiftly from the sky. Meanwhile, Mu Nanji suddenly said, "Let's deal with this person first." As soon as she finished speaking, she opened her palm, and a ray of white light shot into the sky. Meanwhile, Zhou Yafu stomped his right foot on the ground and shot into the sky as well. Meanwhile, Xueqi attacked once more. The pressure instantly vanished without a trace when the three of them joined forces. However, all three of them had solemn expressions on their faces. The giant moved his gaze away from Yixian and gazed at Xueqi's group of three. A moment later, he suddenly smashed the tombstone down. It seemed like he intended to smash the world into pieces, and it was extremely shocking. Xueqi frowned slightly when she witnessed this scene, and then she gazed at Yixian. "Lend me your sword." Yixian nodded, and then he flicked his finger. The executing heaven's sword appeared in Xueqi's grasp, and then she transformed into a ray of light that shot into the sky. Everyone watched as Xueqi's sword slashed down on the tombstone. Bang! The entire tombstone shook violently. On the other hand, Xueqi instantly returned to where she stood earlier. Everyone's expressions became solemn when they witnessed this scene. The tombstone had forcefully resisted Yixian's attack. Yixian's expression was also extremely solemn. Until now, apart from the World Prison Pagoda, there wasn't anything that could block the executing heaven sword, but the tombstone in front of him had actually withstood it. For the first time, Xueqi's eyes were solemn, and she turned to look at Yixian. "Do you know him?" Everyone also looked at Yixian. Yixian said solemnly, "I don't know him, but he should be looking for me." As he spoke, he looked at the white-haired woman not far away. "If I want to escape, where would it be convenient for me to escape from?" Escape. He definitely couldn't beat this thing, so his only choice was to escape. And if he wanted to escape, he could only escape from the chaotic universe. Tendo glanced at Yixian. "Is it too late to escape now?" Yixian said solemnly. "Then what should we do?" The white-haired woman was expressionless. "Aren't you good at bluffing, City Lord Yi? Go bluff him." Yixian was speechless. Meanwhile, the giant in the sky suddenly slapped its palm down. As soon as this palm descended, the expressions of everyone in the surroundings changed. It didn't seem like it intended to annihilate Yixian. It seemed like it intended to annihilate everyone here. Mu Nanji's beautiful brows knit together slightly. "What's wrong with you?" As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly shot into the sky. In the next moment, the space around her suddenly trembled, and then countless strands of mysterious energy seeped out from the surroundings and blasted towards the giant. However, the mysterious energy instantly vanished without a trace as soon as the giant's palm descended. However, half of the force of the giant's attack had been dispersed by Mu Nanji. At the same time, Zhou Yafu suddenly appeared in front of the giant. He was truly too tiny when standing before the giant. It was like an ant standing before a human. Zhou Yafu didn't waste his breath and just smashed his fist forward. However, the giant didn't dodge and allowed Zhou Yafu's fist to strike him. Rumble! Before everyone's eyes, the giant's entire body shook violently. However, he didn't retreat. On the contrary, Zhou Yafu retreated nearly 1,000 feet. The expressions of everyone here turned solemn when they witnessed this scene. Meanwhile, the Tendo gazed at Yixian. "Aren't you going to deal with your own problems?" Yixian fell silent. The Tendo continued. "Do you want the entire chaotic universe to suffer along with you?" Yixian was about to speak when Xueqi looked at the Tendo. "I didn't ask you to do anything, so why are you talking so much?" The white-haired woman looked coldly at Xueqi. "Do you think you can protect him? This fellow possesses a precious treasure of the fifth dimension. How many people have designs on him? If you protect him, then your kingdom will suffer a calamity." Xueqi gazed at the white-haired woman. "Do you need to worry about my kingdom? Do you?" The white-haired woman's expression was slightly unsightly. At this moment, Yixian suddenly said, "I will deal with it myself." Xueqi looked at Yixian. "You can't beat it." Yixian said solemnly, "Let me trick it." "Oh no, let me talk to it." Xueqi thought about it and said, "I will go with you." Yixian nodded, "Thank you." As soon as he finished speaking, he and Xueqi flew into the air. At this moment, the giant was looking at Yi Xian. Mu Nanji and Zhou Yafu glanced at Yi Xian but didn't say anything. Yi Xian opened his palm and the World Prison Pagoda appeared in his hand. When it saw the World Prison Pagoda, the giant's gaze finally changed. Right at this moment, Yi Xian roared in rage. "Suppress it!" As soon as he finished speaking, the World Prison Pagoda appeared above the giant's head. In the next moment, a blood-red glow locked onto the giant. Talk. Yi Xian was very clear that there was nothing to talk about at all. The giant was here to take his life. How could they talk about it? Only one of them would live. Moreover, the World Prison Pagoda belonged to Yi Xian, so why should he give it to others? Why? He wouldn't give it to anyone. Damn. Yi Xian directly utilized the strongest trump card of the Pagoda of Prison. At the instant the Pagoda of Prison appeared, the expressions of everyone in the surroundings instantly changed. It was especially so for Tian Dao because she sensed danger. It was even more dangerous than Xueqi. Xueqi's expression was quite solemn. After the World Prison Pagoda was activated, even she sensed danger. After it activated the World Prison Pagoda, the giant's expression changed as well. Solemn. Yi Xian's expression was quite ferocious. Do you all think I'm easy to bully? As soon as he finished speaking, he pressed his right hand down. Bang! The World Prison Pagoda descended. In the next moment, the giant's body turned illusory. At this moment, a powerful aura surged out from within the giant's body. Rumble! Yi Xian seemed as if he'd suffered a heavy blow, and blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly roared furiously, "Suppress!" The World Prison Pagoda shook violently, and then a ray of red light swept down. In an instant, the giant's body started to vanish inch by inch. The expressions of everyone here changed when they witnessed this scene. The white-haired woman took a deep and long glance at Yi Xian. At this moment, she noticed that this fellow wasn't easy to bully. In next to no time, the practically invincible giant's body started to vanish inch by inch. In a short period of time, only half his body remained, and the giant actually wasn't able to resist at all. Right when the giant was about to vanish completely, he suddenly placed the tombstone in front of him, and then his body started to burn. Burn. The giant burned his body madly. In the end, his body transformed into strands of energy that entered the tombstone. It didn't take long for the tombstone to start trembling violently, and it didn't take long for the giant to vanish completely. However, the tombstone had split open from the middle, and there was a bottomless black vortex within it. A moment of silence ensued before a voice resounded. "What an ant from a lowly world! How audacious!" Meanwhile, the World Prison Pagoda returned to the center of Yi Xian's forehead. The white-haired woman gazed at Yi Xian with a hostile expression. At this moment, Yi Xian's countenance was pale as a sheet of paper, and he seemed extremely weak. Obviously, it was definitely the best opportunity to attack. Meanwhile, Nan Gongwan suddenly said, "That's a teleportation formation." Everyone gazed at the tombstone. A teleportation formation? Someone's going to teleport over? P.S. There's more. Chapter 636. Teleportation Formation. Everyone's expressions were slightly unsightly. If someone came, it would be an expert from another world. As for how strong that expert was, no one knew. At this moment Tendo suddenly said, "Destroy it." After saying that, she looked toward Seven. Seven raised her sword and a streak of sword light slashed onto the tombstone. Boom! The entire tombstone shook, but the executing heaven sword didn't even leave a mark on it. Seven shook her head. "This tombstone is special." She looked at Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian's body was shaking violently and he didn't look good. Seven said solemnly, "Nan Gong, heal him." Nan Gongwan nodded and then walked in front of Yi Xian. She took out a thumb-sized golden pill and fed it to Yi Xian. On the other side, the white-haired woman suddenly said, "Are you sure you want to protect him?" Xueqi looked at the white-haired woman. The white-haired woman was expressionless. "I know you are very confident in yourself, but have you ever thought that the power behind this giant isn't an ordinary one? Protecting him is the same as directly facing that power. Aren't you afraid of destroying your divine kingdom?" Seven was expressionless. "What does this have to do with you?" After saying this, She led the people of God Nation and left. As if she thought of something, Seven suddenly stopped. Do you have a map of the universe? The white-haired woman looked at Seven. A map of the universe? Seven nodded. How many universes are there around my chaotic universe? The white-haired woman frowned. Why are you asking this? Saying this, her pupils constricted. Unifying the entire chaotic universe isn't enough? On the battlefield, Mu Nanji and Zhou Yafu's expressions changed. What did this little girl want to do? Did she want to unify the entire four-dimensional universe? Was she crazy? Not to mention the white-haired woman and the others. Even the experts behind Seven were shocked. Seven looked at them. Can't I? Mu Nanji looked at Seven. Do you know how big the outside world is? Seven shook her head. I don't know, but it will belong to my god nation in the future. Mu Nanji looked at Seven and didn't say anything. Arrogant? He had to admit that he was indeed a little too arrogant. Because the entire four-dimensional universe was really too big. At this moment, Tendo, who was not far away, said in a deep voice, No one has ever unified the four-dimensional universe. Seven said calmly, I will be first. After speaking, she looked at Nangong. Pass down my orders. Summon all the geniuses of the Chaosverse. So long as they are talented, whether they are martial geniuses or scholars, they are to be brought here. They will be raised by the 3 schools of the Confucian institution and used as reserves. Nangong looked at Seven and bowed. Yes, your majesty. At this moment, Seven turned around and looked at Tendo. You have a third choice, which is to join my god country. I will give you 3 days to think about it. If you don't give me a reply in 3 days, I will kill you. Even gods won't be able to save you. With that, she turned around and left. In the field, Tendo suddenly pointed at the tombstone. You seem to have forgotten about it. Seven looked at the tombstone. If they dare to come, then I dare to kill them. The Tendo was silent. Soon, Seven led the experts of the god country and disappeared into the distance on the giant gold dragon. At this moment, Zhou Yafu suddenly said softly, This little girl's heart is really big. Mu Nanji looked at Tendo. What are your plans? Leave? Tendo naturally didn't want to leave because she belonged to this world. Where could she go? Moreover, she couldn't go anywhere. Because other Tendo definitely wouldn't allow her to go to other universes. Moreover, if she left this world, her strength would be greatly reduced. At this moment Mu Nanji suddenly said, I have an idea. The Tendo looked at Mu Nanji. Maybe we can join forces with her. Tendo frowned. Zhou Yafu said softly, You mean? Mu Nanji nodded. She looked at the golden dragon in the distant starry sky. She's ambitious and powerful enough. Perhaps this is our chance. Zhou Yafu and the Tendo were silent. After a long time, the Tendo looked at the tombstone in the sky and said softly, The most important thing now is how to deal with the incoming expert. Mu Nanji nodded. That's true. I just don't know what kind of force is on the other side of the teleportation portal. Then, she turned to the Tendo. Don't have any ideas about that kid. This person is not someone we can afford to provoke. The Tendo frowned. What do you mean? Mu Nanji said softly, What I mean is that this guy has a powerful backer. It's fine if he doesn't show up, but if he does, it'll be bad. The Tendo said in a low voice. Xiao Mu, what did you foresee? Mu Nanji said softly. Nothing. Anyway, let's wait and see. I'm going. I haven't been back to the Tang clan for a long time. I'll go back and have a look. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and vanished. In the field, Mu Nanji looked at Yi Zhantian and Zhou Yafu. Thank you. Zhou Yafu shook his head. We're friends. No need to thank me. Friends. The Tendo nodded slightly, her heart warmed. Whether it was Zhou Yafu or Mu Nanji, she had befriended them all in the past. This time, she did not expect all of them to return. No, there was one more person. Nanming Archfiend. The City of Order. After returning to the City of Order, Xueqi immediately gathered the ministers of the God Nation for a meeting. Yi Xian was arranged to stay in a room. The one who treated him was Lunatic Kai. Xuejing was there too. Beside the bed, Xuejing looked at Yi Xian curiously. Is he okay? Lunatic Kai did not speak. Xuejing was shocked. Is he going to die? Lunatic Kai. At this time, Yi Xian's fingers suddenly trembled. Xueqi quickly walked over. Yi shameless, oh no, Yi swordsman, you're awake? Yi Xian nodded slightly and then slowly sat up. Xueqi quickly asked, Are you okay? Yi Xian shook his head. It's nothing serious. Xueqi still wanted to speak, but Lunatic Kai suddenly said, Let him be for a while. Xueqi hesitated, then nodded. Soon, only Yi Xian was left in the room. Yi Xian sat on the bed in silence. This silence lasted for a full hour. At this time, a Yu appeared in front of him. Looking at Yi Xian, a Yu said calmly, Do you think you're weak? Yi Xian nodded. Weak. This trip to the starry sky made him deeply understand how weak he was now. A Yu said solemnly, I also realize that you're very weak now. No, you have to improve your strength. Yi Xian looked at a Yu. A Yu said solemnly, First, you need a sword. Use the sword to improve your realm. Realm is the foundation. Second, we need to open the 7th floor. Once the 7th floor is opened, you can learn that secret manual. With that secret manual, you'll be able to fight against any expert. Third, you need to improve your cultivation in the sword Dao and attain the level of sword god. Fourth, find Yanjia and the Dao laws on the 6th floor. Once all the Dao laws are in place, you'll be able to utilize even more of the pagoda's abilities. Meanwhile, the pagoda appeared in front of a Yu, and it hurriedly nodded to express its agreement. A Yu pushed the pagoda open and continued, Don't do anything for now. Just improve your strength. Yi Xian said solemnly, Won't haste make waste? A Yu laughed coldly. Haste makes waste? Then are you going to wait for death? Yi Xian spoke solemnly, Miss A Yu, is that Black Origin world more formidable than Divine Kingdom? A Yu spoke indifferently. Do you think a place that dares to target the 5th dimension isn't formidable? Yi Xian fell silent for a long time before he spoke furiously. Motherfucker! Every time one of them dies, another stronger one will come. There's no end to it. Do they think I'm easy to bully? A Yu spoke indifferently. Are you not easy to bully? Yi Xian was speechless. A Yu spoke solemnly. I think you can't keep a low profile anymore. Yi Xian hurriedly looked at a Yu. A Yu said, We must open the 7th floor. Also, you have to find a way to borrow those 2 swords at the top of the pagoda. The 7th floor. Yi Xian nodded. There was an unparalleled martial technique on the 7th floor. The boundless sword. If he could learn it, he might be able to instantly kill that heavenly fate sword. And the swords at the top of the pagoda. Actually, he'd coveted those 2 swords for a long time. As if he'd thought of something, Yi Xian said, Miss A Yu, you're right. I have to improve my strength now. As he spoke, he glanced at the swords he'd extorted from the Star-Lord and the others. There were 17 Creation Realm swords left. 17 swords. It should be enough for now. A Yu said, You cultivate first. I'll go look for that fellow Yanjia. Yi Xian thought for a moment and nodded. Then I'll be troubling you, Miss A Yu. A Yu spoke indifferently. I'm not just doing this for you. I'm also doing this so that this damn pagoda doesn't fall into the hands of others. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and vanished. Only Yi Xian remained in the room. Meanwhile, the Emperor Hound suddenly said, Kid, I'm going to evolve. Evolve? Yi Xian hurriedly asked, Is it dangerous? The Emperor Hound chuckled. It's not very dangerous. Once I evolve, I'll slap anyone you don't like to death. Ha ha ha. Yi Xian smiled. All right, the Emperor Hound said. Let's do our best. Yi Xian nodded and spoke softly. Let's do our best. A short while later, the Emperor Hound arrived on the 2nd floor and activated its bloodline. Outside, Yi Xian withdrew the 17 creation swords. After a long moment of silence, he withdrew one of them and stabbed it into his stomach. Devour. It didn't take long for strands of pure energy to emanate from his body, and his body started to absorb the energy like a madman. In a distant starry sky, a woman was strolling through the river of stars. The woman wore a plain dress, and her long hair draped over her back. At the end of her long hair was a purple ribbon. After walking for a short while, the space in front of the woman trembled slightly, and an invisible barrier appeared. The woman was expressionless. "You broke the rules." After a long time, a voice resounded, "I didn't target him." The woman slowly closed her eyes. "He almost died." The voice said, "The forces of the fourth dimension are targeting him." The woman suddenly opened her eyes, and her expression was extremely fierce. "If something happens to him because of your fifth dimension, I will slaughter everyone in your fifth dimension." After a long moment of silence, the voice resounded, "If the three of you dare to forcibly break the fifth dimension, he will die." The woman suddenly roared, "I beg you to come out and fight me. If you exceed 2 strikes, I will cut your abdomen on the spot." The voice fell silent. P.S. No more. Asking for votes. Asking for votes. Asking for praise. Asking for praise. Chapter 637. In the starry sky, the plain-dressed woman stood quietly, her long hair fluttering behind her. The starry sky around her was silent. After a long time, the plain-dressed woman walked into the distance, disappearing into the endless starry sky. Order City. After Xueqi returned, she immediately sent out an order to the entire chaotic universe. Recruiting talents. The Divine Kingdom's recruitment of talents was undoubtedly a wonderful thing for the people of the Chaosverse. Especially the Imperial examinations. In the past, strength reigned supreme. Without strength, no matter how good one's knowledge was, it was all for naught. But now it was different. Even if you didn't know how to cultivate, as long as you had real knowledge, you could put it to good use. Moreover, in God Nation, the status of scholars was extremely high. Rule the world through martial arts. Rule the country through literature. Not only that, many experts had to obey the orders of some scholars. This was completely unimaginable in the past. Besides the imperial examinations, God Nation also did many things that were beneficial to the desolate worlds. For example, they attracted a large number of spirit and dragon veins, causing the spiritual energy here to gradually increase. Moreover, people here could also join God Nation to learn. In the past, the main resources here were controlled by the Order Alliance and other forces. It was difficult for ordinary people to improve, but now there were many ways for them to improve. In an instant, more and more people acknowledged God Nation. Loyalty. After God Nation unified the entire chaotic universe, it didn't pillage or pillage. Instead, it brought countless benefits here. This made the people below begin to acknowledge God Nation. Inside a great hall, Xueqi sat at the head of the table. In front of her, there were more than 200 people. These people were all from the cabinet. The leader was a white-haired old man dressed in white. This person was God Nation's divine minister, Xueqi. In God Nation, he was highly respected. Even Xueqi had to call him teacher. Xueqi looked at Xueqi. "Your Majesty, I heard that you want to conquer other universes?" Xueqi nodded. "Teacher, what do you think?" Xueqi sighed softly. "Your Majesty, the chaotic universe is large enough that it isn't easy for God Nation to manage it. If we go to conquer other universes, I'm afraid it will be a waste of manpower and resources." Xueqi was silent. Xueqi continued. "I believe that what we need to do right now is to properly govern the Chaosverse and make it even more powerful than before." Xueqi nodded. "Old man is right. However, we must always be on guard against others. My Scandinavia, even if we don't unify the entire fourth dimension, we must always be prepared to face all kinds of challenges." Xueqi nodded. "Indeed. My God Nation must be strong enough." 7 said, "Teacher, I will leave the matters here to you. I will be in secluded meditation for a period of time." Xueqi looked at 7. "Your Majesty is going to break through?" 7 nodded. Hearing this, Xueqi was overjoyed. The stronger Xueqi was, the stronger the heavenly kingdom was. It could be said that Xueqi's strength was of great benefit to the entire divine kingdom. After saying that, Xueqi stood up and left. In the hall, everyone bowed slightly and then left. In a corridor, Xueqi was slowly walking, and beside him was Nangongwan. In just a moment, 7 came to Yi Xian's room. Just as she was about to enter, she frowned and stopped. Nangongwan asked, "Your Majesty?" 7 said, "He is going to break through."
Nan Gongwan looked at Yi Xian's room and didn't say anything. 7 opened her palm and the executing heaven's sword appeared in it. She hadn't returned this sword to Yi Xian. Looking at the sword in her hand, 7 said softly, I don't know if it is my imagination, but I feel like you are rejecting me, right? The executing heaven's sword was silent. 7 smiled and released her hand. Enter. The executing heaven's sword didn't hesitate at all. It turned into a streak of sword light and flew into Yi Xian's flying sword. Nan Gongwan said solemnly, This sword has no taste. 7 shook her head. This sword isn't suitable for me, it is suitable for him. Nan Gongwan didn't say anything else. 7 said, After he comes out, let him head to my cultivation room and book storage. If he needs anything, help him. Nan Gongwan was stunned. Your Majesty, 7 said softly, do as I say. After saying that, she turned around and left. Nan Gongwan was silent. 3 days later, Yi Xian walked out of the room. Outside the room, Yi Xian raised his head and faced the sky. The sunlight shone on his face, making him feel warm and comfortable. After a long while, Yi Xian took a deep breath. Void-piercing realm. After devouring 15 manifestation realm swords, he reached void-piercing realm from law-controlling realm. Of course, his realm was still on the low side as he was a few realms away from Emperor realm. However, he could only stop because he didn't have enough swords. Moreover, manifestation realm swords were becoming less and less useful. He had to think of a way to get Dao realm swords to devour. At this moment, Nan Gongwan appeared in front of Yi Xian. She looked at Yi Xian. Her Majesty instructed me to bring you to her cultivation room and book storage. Yi Xian looked at Nan Gongwan. 7's cultivation room? Nan Gongwan said solemnly. Yi Xian, can you not call Her Majesty that? Yi Xian asked. Then what do you think I should call her? Nan Gongwan said. Calling Her Majesty by her name is very disrespectful. Yi Xian walked in front of Nan Gongwan and said with a smile, I don't think it's disrespectful. In my heart, I treat her as a friend. What's wrong with calling a friend by her name? Nan Gongwan looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian continued, Do you think I'm not qualified to be her friend? Nan Gongwan said indifferently, You said it yourself. Yi Xian smiled. This is between me and her. It has nothing to do with you, right? Nan Gongwan looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, the people of God Nation don't really like you. Yi Xian asked, Do I need you to like me? Nan Gongwan looked at Yi Xian for a long time. Finally she turned around and left. Follow me. Yi Xian shrugged and followed Nan Gongwan. Soon, Nan Gongwan brought him to Xueqi's cultivation room. Xueqi's cultivation room wasn't very big, but there were 12 swords in it. 12 swords of the Dao realm. Yi Xian was stunned when he saw the 12 swords. At this time, Nan Gongwan suddenly said, These 12 swords were collected by God Nation's rulers. The owners of each sword have reached Transcendent Sword God. She looked at Yi Xian. Do you understand what I mean? Yi Xian said seriously, What do you mean? Nan Gongwan stared at Yi Xian. Don't play dumb. You can't touch these swords. Yi Xian asked, Did Xueqi tell you that I can't touch them? Nan Gongwan was a little angry. You? Yi Xian thought about it and said, Nan Gong Kingdom Scholar, I have a good impression of you. The last time we met, I had a good impression of you because you have a calm temperament. But now, is it because of me, or is it because of yourself that you've actually become so impatient? Nan Gongwan looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian said indifferently, Xueqi is your god lord, but she isn't mine. You better not care about the matter between me and her. You don't have the right to care. This is the last time I'll be polite to you. If you continue to talk nonsense, I won't be polite anymore. He looked at Nan Gongwan coldly. If you piss me off, I'll kill you. Nan Gongwan looked at Yi Xian. Are you threatening me? As soon as she said this, 2 black-clothed people appeared behind her. Yi Xian looked at Nan Gongwan and in the next moment, a flying sword slashed at her. Behind Nan Gongwan, 2 black-clothed people suddenly appeared in front of her and attacked together. However, as Yi Xian's sword slashed down, the 2 of them were instantly sent flying. Yi Xian took a step forward and slashed at Nan Gongwan's head with the executing heaven sword. Nan Gongwan squinted her eyes and directly left the cultivation room. However, Yi Xian's sword was still above her head. If this sword fell, she would definitely be dismembered. Very few things could block the executing heaven sword. At this moment, a long saber suddenly slashed at Yi Xian's executing heaven sword. Boom! The executing heaven sword shook violently and flew back to Yi Xian's hand. And in front of Nan Gongwan stood a middle-aged man. Yan Dao. The middle-aged man's eyes were covered and his right hand was placed on the hilt of his saber. His aura was locked onto Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at Yan Dao and in the next moment, an illusory Xiao Ta appeared between his eyebrows. Seeing this illusory Xiao Ta, Yan Dao frowned. Nan Gongwan's expression instantly changed and she shouted angrily, "Yi Xian, have you gone mad?" Prison Pagoda. She had seen the might of this Xiao Ta. It could be said that in the entire Divine Kingdom, only Xueqi could barely resist this Xiao Ta. At this moment, the prison pagoda suddenly shook violently and directly floated above Yan Dao's head. Being enveloped by the prison pagoda, Yan Dao's entire body was directly locked by a powerful force. Above his head, a blood-red prisoner character appeared. Seeing this scene, Nan Gongwan's face instantly turned pale. If Yan Dao was killed by Yi Xian because of her, then she would really have committed a great sin. After all, an expert like Yan Dao was extremely rare even in Divine Kingdom. He could be said to be one of the top forces in Divine Kingdom. She had never imagined that Yi Xian would actually be so mad that he would really kill someone just because he said he would. Nan Gongwan said solemnly, "Young Master Yi, it was my fault just now. As a person of great stature, I hope that you can be magnanimous and not hold it against me." However, Yi Xian did not stop. Below the prison pagoda, Yan Dao's body had already started to turn illusory. Nan Gongwan was both shocked and furious. She hurriedly said, "Young Master Yi, Her Majesty has treated you well. If you act so ruthlessly, how will you face her once she comes out?" Hearing this, Yi Xian slightly frowned. After a moment of silence, the prison pagoda above Yan Dao's head stopped and returned to Yi Xian. Seeing this scene, Nan Gongwan immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Yi Xian looked straight at Nan Gongwan and Yan Dao. "I know that your Divine Kingdom looks down on me, Yi Xian. But it doesn't matter. I don't need you to look up to me. This time, I'll give little seventh face. Next time, if you provoke me again, I promise to kill you." After he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Behind him, Nan Gongwan said solemnly, "City Lord Yi, Her Majesty asked you to go to her cultivation room to cultivate. She also asked me to do my best to help you. If you have any needs, get lost." Not far away, Yi Xian's furious roar could be heard. Soon, he disappeared into the distance. Chapter 638. Yi Xian left without hesitation. Nan Gongwan was silent. Yi Xian's choice surprised her. She had always thought that Yi Xian was shameless to the point where there was no bottom line. But now, she realized that this person was actually very arrogant. Arrogance in his bones. At this moment, Yan Dao suddenly said, "This person is very dangerous." Nan Gongwan looked at Yan Dao, who said softly, "There must be a reason why His Majesty thinks so highly of this person." Nan Gongwan said solemnly, "Apart from those treasures, what is so special about him?" Yan Dao shook his head. "He came from a small world and is already not simple. Moreover, His Majesty thinks highly of him and even treats him as a friend. How can he be a simple person?" Nan Gongwan was silent. Yan Dao said, "Nan Gong, you shouldn't care about the matter between him and His Majesty. His Majesty definitely won't like it." Nan Gongwan lowered her head and remained silent. Yan Dao said, "How can one judge a person by their appearance?" With that, he turned and left. Nan Gongwan remained silent for a long time before turning and leaving as well. After Yi Xian left Order City, he returned to God Martial City. At this moment, he had reached the void-piercing realm and in terms of sword cultivation, he had reached Transcendent Sword Saint. But this was far from enough. He had to reach Sword God. Moreover, it was obviously not an easy task to attain the level of Sword God. Actually, going to God Nation was the best choice because there was a Sword God there. However, he definitely wouldn't go back. In God Nation, apart from Seven, no one else saw eye to eye with Yi Xian. Yi Xian was like that. If you are willing to be friends with me, I will treat you sincerely. If you don't like me, I won't like you either. It's the same if you don't ask for help. At this moment, a voice suddenly rang out in Yi Xian's mind. You want to break through to Sword God? Yi Xian was stunned. The voice from the 6th floor. Yi Xian hurriedly said, Senior, you are awake? The 6th floor replied. N. Yi Xian said solemnly, Senior, can you come out now? The person on the 6th floor said, I still need a bit more time. When the time is up, I will come out. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he said, Senior, will you do something to me after you come out? To be honest, he was still a little worried. Because from the start till now, the 6th floor had been too easy to talk to. It was so easy to talk to that it made him feel a little abnormal. The 6th replied, It depends on the situation. Yi Xian's expression froze. Depends on the situation? Yi Xian's face darkened. Senior, what do you mean by that? The 6th replied, It's nothing. Don't you want to become a sword god? Can I help you? Yi Xian asked in a deep voice. How? The 6th replied, Let's go somewhere. Yi Xian asked, Where? The 6th replied, Great Void Sword Mound. Yi Xian said in a low voice, In the Chaos Verse. The person on the 6th floor replied, No. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Then how do I get there? The person on the 6th replied, I'll send you there. As soon as he finished speaking, the space in front of Yi Xian suddenly split open. Yi Xian was a little hesitant. Senior, can I come back after I go there? The person on the 6th replied, Under normal circumstances, yes. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment the person on the 6th replied, Go in. You only have one chance. Choose for yourself. Yi Xian didn't hesitate any longer. He walked straight into the spatial rift, and it quickly closed up. Yi Xian shuttled all the way through the spatial tunnel. Because he had the Space Dao Law, this spatial travel didn't affect him at all. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Senior, what kind of place is this Great Void Sword Mound? The person on the 6th replied, It used to be a very powerful swordsman sect. Yi Xian asked, How powerful was it? The person on the 6th replied, I don't know how to describe it to you, because the strong in your eyes and the strong in mine are completely different concepts. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, the surrounding space suddenly started trembling. Yi Xian frowned slightly. What's going on? The person on the 6th replied, Spatial fluctuations. You have the Space Dao Law, so there won't be any problems. Yi Xian nodded. That's good. The person on the 6th suddenly asked, That little girl is very demonic. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, You mean little 7? The person on the 6th replied, Yes, a very demonic girl. However, you aren't any weaker than her. It's just that you have a lot of things to do and don't have much time to focus on Sword Dao. Moreover, no one has taught you Sword Dao since you were young. Compared to her, you lose in terms of starting point. Yi Xian said seriously, Senior, as expected of an extraordinary expert from the distant past. Only you can see the essence and truth of things with a single glance. I admire you. The person on the 6th fell silent for a moment before he said, Long time no see. Why have you become so thick-skinned? Yi Xian was speechless. Right at this moment, a ray of white light suddenly appeared in the space before Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked up, and in the next moment, he'd entered the white light. A short while later, Yi Xian appeared on a plain, and there was a black palace not far away from him. It was pitch black and extremely eerie. The surroundings were silent. Yi Xian felt slightly cold. Senior, what's this? The person on the 6th replied, Enter the palace. Yi Xian looked at the palace, and there were 2 blood-red words above it. Demonic Palace. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Senior, what's this demonic palace? The person on the 6th replied, It's the palace that I once lived in. There are treasures inside. Treasures? Yi Xian smiled. Senior, this. How can I do that? Haha. With that said, he flew into the palace. The person on the 6th replied. After entering the hall, Yi Xian instantly sensed an extremely evil aura. This aura made him shiver all over, and he felt very uncomfortable. Yi Xian secretly put up his guard. This place doesn't look like a good place. The person on the sixth suddenly said, "Enter the depths." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, "Senior, you're not thinking of taking over my body, are you?" The person on the sixth replied indifferently, "Are you suffering from persecution? Taking over your body? You have this stupid tower, who can take over your body? Also, I'm really a good person, do you understand?" Good person. Yi Xian's expression was quite strange. "Senior, I'm a little panicked when you say that." The person on the sixth replied, "Then go back." Yi Xian smiled. "I'm just joking. If I didn't believe in you, I wouldn't have come here." With that said, he walked into the depths of the palace. After a while, Yi Xian stopped. In front of him was a pool of blood, full of blood, but it seemed to have solidified. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. "Senior, this is?" The person on the sixth replied, "Ancient demon god's blood." Yi Xian asked, "Ancient demon god?" The person on the sixth replied, "A very long time ago, very powerful." Yi Xian asked, "How powerful?" The person on the sixth replied, "The very powerful kind." Yi Xian asked again, "Is he as powerful as the sword owner at the top of the tower?" The person on the sixth was silent for a moment before he said, "If you continue to argue with me, I might beat you to death." Yi Xian. P.S. I'm a little busy today, so I have to go somewhere else. I hope I still have time to write when I come back. If I don't update tomorrow, or the update is late, that's normal. I'm delayed because of something, not because I'm going to a healthcare center or something like that. You have to believe in my character, understand? Chapter 639. An Ancient Demon Lord. Yi Xian looked at the pool of blood and asked softly, "Senior, why did you bring me here?" The sixth replied, "I won't hide it from you. Kid, I've been observing you for a long time. I feel that you're suitable to be a demonic successor, so I brought you here to join the demonic path." Join the demonic path. Yi Xian's expression froze. The sixth replied, "Are you interested?" Yi Xian asked, "Senior, what do you mean by join the demonic path?" The sixth replied, "It means to join the demonic orthodoxy and become a demonic successor." Yi Xian fell silent. Demonic? He knew too little about this so-called demonic. The sixth replied, "Let's talk about the benefits. First, you can absorb this pool of blood. It can change your body, allowing you to become a monarch. Second, you can receive the demonic path's inheritance. Of course, you might not be interested in most things, but there are two things you'll definitely like." Yi Xian asked, "What are they?" The sixth replied, "Grave, the fist of burial." Yi Xian asked, "Grave? Fist of burial?" The sixth explained, "The so-called grave is a treasure of the demonic race. Its function is a little evil. This fist of burial is the highest martial art of the demonic path. A single punch can bury everything in the world. It's very powerful." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Sir, is there any harm?" The sixth replied, "There is. Once you join the demonic path, you'll be more carefree. However, you're no different from joining the demonic path." Yi Xian fell silent. The sixth added, "I don't have much time. Give me an answer as soon as possible." Yi Xian replied, "Join the demonic path." At a time like this, he didn't want to think too much. Improving his strength was the most important thing right now. The sixth replied, "Go down." Yi Xian nodded. Then he leaped into the blood pool. As soon as he entered the blood pool, the blood in the pool started to boil. Ah! A heart-wrenching and lung-splitting shriek suddenly resounded in the spacious hall. At this moment, Yi Xian felt as if his entire body was being torn apart by the demonic blood. The sixth floor suddenly said, "Hold on a little longer, the ancient demon blood is going to enter your body, it will be a little painful." Yi Xian said painfully, "Senior, this isn't just a little pain." The sixth replied, "There's something even more painful." Yi Xian was speechless. The man on the sixth floor was right. Not long after, his skin felt like it was disintegrating bit by bit. The pain was indescribable. Yi Xian seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly asked, "Senior, my blood doesn't seem to reject this demon blood?" "The demon blood is changing your body, not your bloodline. That's why your bloodline won't reject it. Yi Xian nodded. Understood. Just like that, time passed bit by bit and the amount of ancient demon blood in the pool gradually decreased. Yi Xian's body gradually absorbed the demon blood, and as he did so, his body began to gradually transform. A day later, the ancient demon blood in the pool had been completely absorbed by Yi Xian. After absorbing the ancient demon blood, his hair gradually turned dark red, and his body emitted a strange red gas. At this moment, a powerful aura suddenly emanated from Yi Xian's body. This aura soared into the sky and caused the entire hall to shake violently. The sixth replied, "Xiao Ta, help him suppress it. Don't let him breathe. Expose his aura." The prison pagoda appeared above Yi Xian's head, and soon, the aura emanating from Yi Xian's body was completely absorbed by it. However, the aura emanating from Yi Xian's body grew stronger and stronger. Not only that, but Yi Xian's brows furrowed as a fainter demon imprint appeared between his brows. Gradually, the demon imprint became deeper and deeper, and in the end, it seemed to be formed from fresh blood. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. Boom! A powerful aura shot into the sky, and the prison pagoda above Yi Xian's head shook violently. However, it still absorbed the aura. Yi Xian stood up. At this moment, he had undergone an earth-shattering transformation. His upper body was bare, and his veins were bulging, filled with explosive power. In between his brows, there was a demon imprint that looked like it was formed from fresh blood. Not only that, but there was also a blood-red gas floating around his body. Demon! At this moment, the sixth replied, "You've already become a demon, and your body has a demonic nature. The so-called demonic nature is your true nature, and the demon will release your true nature. For example, you were originally very shameless and horny, but now, you may become even more shameless and horny." Yi Xian. The sixth replied, "Demon is human nature. It's the same logic as you swordsman's so-called pursuit of one's true nature. Right now, you need to control your demonic nature. After all, pursuing one's true nature doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want. We demons have our own moral boundaries." Yi Xian nodded. "I understand. Demon?" At this moment, he didn't feel any different after becoming a demon. The only difference was that his strength had greatly increased. Emperor physique. His current physique had reached the emperor realm. Moreover, he could feel boundless power in his body. This power wasn't external, but his own strength. Physical strength. Yi Xian sighed. He hadn't expected that his physique would reach the emperor realm before his cultivation. Emperor realm. The sixth replied, "The ancient demonic blood in your body hasn't been fully absorbed yet. If you absorb it all, your physique can reach the next level. However, you can't continue to do so now, because your cultivation level is too low. It's not a good thing for your physique and cultivation level to be too far apart." Yi Xian nodded. "That's true." As if thinking of something, he hurriedly asked, "Senior, what about the grave and burial fist?" The sixth replied, "Enter from the left." Yi Xian looked to the left, and there was a Xiao Dao. Yi Xian didn't think much of it and walked in. Yi Xian followed the Xiao Dao to the end, and at the end was a secret room. On the wall of the secret room, there was a portrait. The portrait was of a middle-aged man in a cloud-colored robe, holding a book in his hand, and exuding a calm and scholarly aura. Yi Xian sized up the portrait. "Senior, this can't be you, right?" The sixth replied, "Do you have any questions?" Yi Xian chuckled, "No questions, no questions." As he spoke, his gaze fell below the portrait, and there was an ancient book and a storage ring. Yi Xian walked over, and picked up the ancient book. Burial fist. Yi Xian asked softly, "Senior, what level is this burial fist? Is it an unparalleled martial art?" The sixth was silent for a moment, and then said, "Second to unparalleled martial art." Yi Xian asked, "What level is this second to unparalleled martial art?" The sixth replied, "Can't you ask fewer questions? Can't you just learn it directly?" Yi Xian. The sixth continued, "This burial fist will have a miraculous effect when used with your physique. As for the grave..." At this point, he suddenly fell silent. Yi Xian looked at the storage ring, and his divine sense swept through it. Inside the storage ring, there was a grave. A grave without a name. Seeing the grave, Yi Xian frowned slightly. Senior, what is this? The sixth replied, it's a treasure of the demon race, and I heard that there's a person buried inside. I don't know who it is, but you should keep it. Who knows, the person might suddenly wake up one day and give you a surprise. Yi Xian's face darkened. A surprise? More like a scare. The sixth replied, keep it, it'll be useful. Yi Xian nodded. All right. Saying so, he put the storage ring into the prison pagoda. The sixth replied, go outside and cultivate this burial fist, I'll teach you. Yi Xian was overjoyed. All right. Saying so, he left the hall. Outside the hall, it was a vast expanse of gray. There was little spirit chi in the surroundings, and the sky was dark without a single ray of sunlight. Yi Xian asked, Senior, what is this place? The sixth replied, a place that's been forgotten by history. This place was once very prosperous, but unfortunately, no place can prosper forever. Even your chaotic universe will be destroyed one day. Yi Xian fell silent. The chaotic universe will be destroyed? He didn't have time to think about all that, because all he could think about right now was how to prevent himself from being destroyed. Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts, and he walked over to an empty space and said, Senior, how do I cultivate this burial fist? The sixth replied, the burial fist emphasizes on the word burial. What is burial? It's burial. When I execute this fist, it's either you bury me, or I bury you. The method of cultivation is very simple. It's just use the strength of your body to circulate according to the meridians of the burial fist. However, every time you execute this burial fist, you'll need to circulate your profound energy through your meridians, so it might be a little painful. A little painful? Yi Xian asked, Senior, is it just a little painful? The sixth replied, yes. Yi Xian's face darkened. As if I'd believe you. However, he didn't have a choice, because he wanted to see how strong this burial fist was. His body was now at the Thearch realm, and if he cultivated a powerful fist technique, his battle strength would definitely multiply. If it's painful, then so be it. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes, and a stream of energy started flowing through his body. It didn't take long for the energy to flow against his meridians. In that instant, Yi Xian's eyes opened, and his features contorted. Senior, it's very painful. The sixth replied. Then cry. Yi Xian. Mystical energy flowing through his meridians felt like his meridians were being pierced by needles, and he really wanted to die. However, Yi Xian gritted his teeth and persevered. If he couldn't even endure this little bit of pain, then he could only wait for death. Soon, the space around Yi Xian began to tremble violently, and the veins on Yi Xian's right hand bulged as a powerful force gathered on his right hand. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian suddenly roared and punched forward. Boom! A few thousand feet away, a towering mountain collapsed. Not only that, but the ground around him also began to crumble inch by inch, and the crumbling spread out at a rapid speed. Chapter 640. In the field, even Yi Xian himself was stunned by his own punch. A single fist was so strong. At this moment, the sixth person's voice rang out. What are you so shocked about? Right now, you're only using half of the burial fist's strength. Half of the strength. Yi Xian sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, he realized that the burial fist was countless times stronger than he'd imagined. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, Senior, how can I use the burial fist's full strength? The sixth person replied, practice. Furthermore, you have the power of the earth, and it can be used to support you. With the support of the power of the earth, the might of your burial fist will become even stronger. The power of the earth. Yi Xian was struck dumb. Then he said, Can I? The sixth person replied, Yes. Yi Xian stomped his right foot lightly, and a great path appeared. Soon, boundless power of the earth gathered in his body. About 15 minutes later, Yi Xian roared and punched out. Rumble! With a single punch, the space within a few kilometers was instantly destroyed and turned pitch black. Yi Xian was stunned. After a long time, Yi Xian finally regained his senses. This burial fist was truly heaven-defying. Yi Xian continued to cultivate. At this moment, Yi Xian was very excited. Because his body was now at the Arch Realm, and with this burial fist, he could even fight against the Arch Realm martial artist. Or rather,
He had the strength to kill the Arch-Realm martial artist. Especially this burial fist, it was a fatal threat to the Arch-Realm martial artists. Continue cultivating. Yi Xian began to cultivate like a madman. He wanted to cultivate this burial fist to its limits. Just like that, after about 5 days, Yi Xian stopped. At this moment, the place he was at had become a bottomless abyss. It was all caused by the residual power of his burial fist. The sixth person replied, "I can barely do it now." Yi Xian asked in a low voice, "Senior, who created this burial fist? How terrifying." The sixth replied, "I created it." Yi Xian was stunned, and then he hurriedly said, "So it was established by Senior. This is seriously too terrifying. Senior, I really admire you." The sixth replied, "Stop flattering me, I won't fall for it. However, it's rare for you to say something sincere. You deserve praise." Yi Xian was speechless. At this time the person on the 6th floor said, "Let's go to the Great Void Sword Mound." Yi Xian nodded. "All right." The sixth replied, "Head south." Yi Xian rose on his sword and disappeared into the distance in the blink of an eye. In the air, Yi Xian looked down. At this moment, he discovered that there was no longer any sign of life in the entire world. This world should have dried up a long time ago. Yi Xian asked, "Senior, what happened in your world?" The sixth replied, "Who knows? I've been imprisoned for a very long time." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Senior, how far is this place from the chaotic universe?" The sixth replied, "With your current strength, it might take you 30 years to return to the chaotic universe." Yi Xian, the sixth replied, "The four-dimensional universe is huge, so huge that you can't even imagine it. The little girl in your chaotic universe wants to conquer the entire four-dimensional universe. I have to say, her idea is really impressive." Little 7. Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Senior, do you think she can do it?" The sixth was silent. Yi Xian smiled. "I think, whether she can or can't do it, she will definitely do it." The sixth replied, "No matter what, she is an incredible person. This little girl is very outstanding, and her speed of growth can only be described as terrifying. When we meet again, she might have reached a new height." Yi Xian nodded. "So, I have to work hard." Speaking of this, he seemed to have thought of something and chuckled. "Senior, have you created any other martial arts techniques?" The sixth replied, "Yes, but not suitable for you. Your top priority now is to improve your sword Dao, and cultivate this fist of burial to the extreme. Your fist of burial still has room to grow." Yi Xian nodded. Indeed, biting off more than one could chew. Yi Xian sped up. After passing through a mountain range, Yi Xian felt a surge of sword intent. Great Void Sword Mound. Soon, Yi Xian stopped. Not far in front of him was a mountain gate. Inside the mountain gate, there was nothing but ruins. Yi Xian walked in. Among the ruins, there were many swords scattered. Many of these swords had lost their spiritual qi. Clearly, they had been here for too long. So long that their spiritual qi had been exhausted. Yi Xian asked, "Senior, is this the Great Void Sword Mound?" The sixth replied, "I didn't expect this place to become like this." Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings. It was very desolate, and there was no aura of life. The sixth replied, "Let's go in and have a look." Yi Xian nodded and continued to move forward. Soon, he arrived in front of a dilapidated hall. In front of the hall, there was a statue of a middle-aged man. The statue was a little dilapidated, and 2 of its arms were missing. Yi Xian looked at the statue and was about to speak when the sixth's voice resounded, "Jian Taishu, come out!" After a moment of silence, the statue before Yi Xian suddenly split open, and a middle-aged man appeared before Yi Xian. However, it wasn't a real body, but an illusion. The middle-aged man's gaze descended onto Yi Xian. "Fiend Lord." The sixth's voice resounded once more, "Long time no see." The middle-aged man said, "Come out and meet me?" The sixth replied, "I'm not coming out." "Jian Taishu, what happened to this world after I left?" Jian Taishu looked up into the sky and said softly, "Disaster." The sixth replied, "What disaster is it that even you can't resist?" Jian Taishu shook his head. An unstoppable disaster. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. Fiend Lord, are you alive or? The Fiend Lord said, I'm alive. Jian Taishu smiled. You're lucky. The Fiend Lord said, Jian Taishu, what disaster is it that you can't say? Jian Taishu shook his head. It's not that I can't say it, but it's meaningless. Now, almost all the living beings in this universe have gone extinct. As he spoke, he looked into the distant horizon and said softly, Fiend Lord, have you heard of the Black-Yellow Great World? The Black-Yellow Great World. Yi Xian's expression changed slightly. The Black-Yellow Great World? Jian Taishu looked at Yi Xian. You've heard of it? Yi Xian nodded. This world seemed to be the most powerful place in the four-dimensional universe. You had told him. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Senior, is this caused by the Black-Yellow Great World? Jian Taishu nodded. Do you know why the Xuanhuan Great World can maintain its prosperity and become stronger? Yi Xian shook his head. Jian Taishu said softly, because they have been sucking the blood of other universes. All the spiritual qi in our universe has been sucked away by them. With the endless spiritual qi of other universes, the Xuanhuan Great World can naturally maintain an abundance of spiritual qi. Moreover, there are more and more talents, and their strength is getting stronger and stronger. I believe that not only us, but many other universes must have suffered from their evil schemes. Yi Xian was silent. He didn't expect that the Black-Yellow Great World would suck away the spiritual qi of other universes to nourish its own world. If this was true, then the spiritual qi of the Xuanhuan Great World would never dry up. However, the other universes would suffer. The chaotic universe. Thinking of this, Yi Xian's expression suddenly changed. The people of the Black-Yellow Great World had come to the chaotic universe. Moreover, that tombstone was a transmission array. In other words, the people of the Black-Yellow Great World were very likely to attack the chaotic universe. Moreover, the people of the Black-Yellow Great World were obviously looking for him. Then there was a problem. What should he do? Thinking of this, Yi Xian suddenly felt a headache. At this time, the Demon Lord suddenly said, Jian Taishu, this time I came to bring you a descendant. Are you interested? Jian Taishu looked at Yi Xian. Him? The Demon Lord said. Yes. Jian Taishu glanced at Yi Xian and then said, Not bad. But, at this point, he didn't continue speaking. The Demon Lord said, What do you think? Jian Taishu said in a low voice, He is a member of your demon sect. The Demon Lord said with a smile, You may not be able to wait for him. Jian Taishu was silent. The Demon Lord said again, This boy is a bit thick-skinned. Everything else is okay. But he won't bring shame to your sect. Of course we won't force him. If he is unwilling, we will leave now. Jian Taishu was silent for a long time and then said, I have a condition. The Demon Lord said, What condition? Jian Taishu said, He must join my Great Void Sword sect. I don't expect him to rebuild the Great Void Sword sect, but the sword principle of my Great Void Sword sect must be passed down. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian nodded, I can do that. Jian Taishu nodded slightly. You are an extraordinary sword saint now? Yi Xian nodded, I came this time to learn how to reach the level of Sword God. Sword God. His current goal was to reach the level of Sword God. Jian Taishu said in a low voice, The level of Sword God requires comprehension and, of course, an opportunity. Come with me. As he spoke, he turned around and floated away. Yi Xian hurriedly followed him. It didn't take long for Yi Xian and Jian Taishu to arrive at an old and shabby hall. There were 9 pillars within this hall, and every single one of them had a sword erected on it. They were swords at the Dao realm. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched when he saw these 9 swords. What great swords! At this moment, Jian Taishu, who was standing in front of him, suddenly said, The 9 pillars represent the 9 ancestors of the Taishu sword sect. Each of these 9 ancestors had once reached the level of extraordinary sword divinity. However, if you want to receive his guidance, it will depend on your own luck and fate. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Within the hall, Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings, and it was extremely quiet. After a short while, it was still very quiet, and no one had come out. Yi Xian's face darkened. Senior, are they looking down on me? The 6th person said, I think that it's time for you to show off. Aren't you very eloquent?
Let's begin. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. It was a close shave, and I wasn't invited for tea. Chapter 641. Within the hall. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings. There was no movement from the 9 pillars. Yi Xian thought for a while and then bowed slightly to the people around him. Seniors, I'm an honest man. I don't know how to play those fancy tricks. If you think I'm good, please show yourself. If you don't think I'm good enough, I won't force you. There was still no movement. Yi Xian nodded. Sorry for disturbing you. With that, he turned and left. He left without hesitation. At this moment, a voice resounded from behind Yi Xian. Kid, why is your temper so bad? Yi Xian stopped. He turned and saw an old man standing in front of him. Yi Xian bowed to the old man. Please enlighten me, senior. The old man looked at Yi Xian. You want to break through to Sword God? Yi Xian nodded. The old man smiled. Do you know what Sword God is? Yi Xian shook his head. The old man said, Sword God is the god of swords. As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his palm and a sword appeared in his hand. The old man smiled. Although the difference between Sword Saint and Sword God is only a single word, the difference between the two is like clouds and mud. If you want to break through to Sword God, the fastest way is to absorb the sword intent of others and use it to prove your own sword Dao. As he said that, he looked at Yi Xian. There are thousands of sword Das. Only by combining the strengths of all can you reach Sword God realm. Sword Dao is connected to the gods. This god doesn't refer to those so-called powerful experts in the legends, but yourself. A person is his own god. One thought connected to become a saint. 10,000 thoughts connected to become a god. Do you understand what I mean? Yi Xian nodded. Understood. The old man smiled. Young man, this old man can feel that your background isn't simple. However, this old man isn't interested. Our great Void Sword sect has been passed down for countless years, but we suffered a catastrophe many years ago. This is the calamity of our great Void Sword sect. The old man hopes that we can help you become a sword god, and after you accept the legacy of the Taishu Sword sect, you can let it continue to be passed down in the future, so that the Taishu Sword sect can be passed down in another way. Yi Xian bowed slightly. It's my duty. The old man nodded. We will release our sword intent, but whether or not you can become a sword god will depend on your own fortune. As soon as he finished speaking, the pillars in the surroundings suddenly trembled, and it didn't take long for 9 types of sword intents to appear in the hall. Yi Xian took a deep breath. Come on. As he spoke, he sat down cross-legged. Enlightenment. On the path of the Sword Dao Yi, other than hard work, it also required frequent comprehension. Every time one's mental state improved, it would be of great help to the Sword Dao. At this moment, he wanted to be enlightened. Using other people's Sword Dao to improve his own Sword Dao. Seeking proof. Yi Xian didn't dare to guarantee that he would succeed, but he had to work hard. Just like that, half a month passed. Half a month passed, and Yi Xian still hadn't left the hall. Chaotic Universe. City of Order. A door suddenly opened, and a little girl walked out. This person was Xueqi. Xueqi looked at the horizon, her eyes closed, her left hand caressing the hilt of the sword at her waist. Not far from Xueqi, Nangong Wan stood quietly. Other than her, there were also the 2 swordsmen, Xiang Qing and Xiang Yu. After a long time, Xueqi opened her eyes and asked softly, How is that, Yi Xian? Yi Xian. Hearing Xueqi's words, Nangong Wan's face changed. She realized that His Majesty really valued Yi Xian. Xueqi suddenly turned to look at Nangong Wan. Nangong Wan didn't dare to hide anything, and immediately recounted what happened that day, without exaggerating. After Nangong Wan finished, Xueqi suddenly spoke. Nangong, how dare you interfere in my private affairs? Hearing this, Nangong Wan's face fell, and she quickly got down on her knees. Your Majesty, this subordinate knows her mistake. Xueqi walked in front of Nangong Wan, looking down at her coldly. Do I need your permission to make friends with others? The moment her words landed, a black-robed man wielding a scythe suddenly appeared behind Nangong Wan. Nangong Wan quickly lowered her head. This subordinate wouldn't dare. Xiang Qing and Xiang Yu also shook their heads.
They could feel that His Majesty was truly angry. In truth, Xueqi rarely got angry. At this time, Xueqi waved her hands, and the black-robed man behind Nangongwan left quietly. Xueqi looked down at Nangongwan. "You're my strategist, not my master. Whatever I do, you can listen, but you cannot interfere. You shouldn't interfere." Saying this, she shook her head. "I've always felt that you're a smart person, and I've always seen you as a helper. But now, it seems that my trust in you has made you arrogant." After saying this, she turned around and walked away. "Return to God Nation immediately, and let Shangguan come to my side." Hearing this, Nangongwan's face turned pale. At this moment, she knew that she was far away from the center of power in God Nation. Before this, she was Nangong Kingdom scholar, and everyone in God Nation respected her. Even Xiangqing and other super experts respected her. This wasn't just because she was a kingdom scholar, but because she was Xueqi's confidant. Xueqi's confidant. Because of this, no one dared to disrespect her. She was proud of Xueqi. But now, all her honor was gone. God Nation never lacked talents. Behind Nangongwan, Xiangqing and Xiangyu looked at her and shook their heads slightly. It had to be said that Nangongwan's decision had completely changed her fate. Inside the temple, Xueqi was sitting, and opposite her was a white-haired woman. Tendo. Tendo looked at Xueqi, and her expression was extremely solemn. The little girl in front of her had become stronger again. The current Xueqi gave her a very dangerous feeling. Xueqi looked at Tendo. "Have you thought it through?" Tendo said solemnly. "Do you know about the black-yellow great world?" Xueqi was silent. At this time, a woman walked in. The woman was wearing a lotus leaf dress, and she had delicate features. Shangguan walked to Xueqi's side and bowed slightly. "Your Majesty, I found some information about the black-yellow great world." Xueqi nodded. "Speak." Shangguan said, "The black-yellow great world, according to the current situation of Celestial Arcanum sect, should be the most powerful world in the entire four-dimensional universe." Xueqi raised her eyebrows. "Stronger than my God Nation?" Shangguan nodded. "Stronger than us, and this black-yellow great world is also a very, very dangerous world, because in order to maintain enough spiritual energy in their world, they often plundered the spiritual energy of other universes. Since ancient times, countless universes have been plundered by them. Because of this, not only did they not decline, but they also became stronger and stronger. Moreover, they have the most advanced martial arts civilization in the entire four-dimensional universe." At this point, she paused slightly, and then said, "In addition, after plundering the spiritual energy of many universes, they will also absorb other civilizations. It can be said that they have gathered the martial arts civilization of many universes." Xueqi nodded slightly. "They did what I wanted to do, but I will not destroy other universes for the sake of the chaotic universe." Shangguan said solemnly, "Your Majesty, there is that tombstone in the starry sky, and that tombstone is a transmission array. In other words, it is very likely that they will come to our chaotic universe and then attack it. We must not be careless." Xueqi looked at Shangguan "What do you think?" Shangguan pondered slightly and then said, "I suggest that we recall all the experts of our God Nation outside. Not only that, but also move some of our great arrays into the starry sky, just in case." Xueqi nodded. "Yes." Shangguan said, "Also, all the great families and sects have some old monsters that have disappeared for a long time. This subordinate suggests that Your Majesty can issue a divine decree to let all these old fellows come out of seclusion. Facing this fantasy great world, we cannot have the slightest contempt." Xueqi nodded. "Yes." Shangguan said, "In addition, Your Majesty also needs to recall those experts who are exploring outside, and tell them to rush back immediately no matter how far they are. Also, that City Lord Yi must come back." Yi Xian. On the side, Tendo glanced at Shangguan "What do you want him to come back for? To court death?" Shangguan smiled. "Your Excellency Tendo, do you really think that City Lord Yi is simple?" Tendo looked at Shangguan "Besides that broken tower, is there anything special about him?" Shangguan said softly, "Having that treasure is already very special." Hearing this, Tendo was silent. Shangguan Xian looked at Tendo. That treasure comes from the fifth dimension, and that treasure recognizes him as its master. Your Excellency Tendo, there are so many monstrous geniuses in the fourth dimension. Why does that treasure recognize him as its master? Is it just because his luck is good? Saying this, she shook her head. If he was lucky to obtain that treasure, then the fact that he is still alive proves that he is not simple. After saying this, she looked at Xueqi. Your Majesty, this subordinate took the initiative to ask Celestial Arcanum Sect to investigate City Lord Yi, and found that he is not simple. Xueqi asked. How is he not simple? Shangguan Xian said in a deep voice. Celestial Arcanum Sect can't see his fate. Even the old sect head can't. No, he doesn't dare. The old sect head said that if he forcibly peeped, even if he could find out City Lord Ye's fate, something bad would definitely happen. That feeling was very strong, so the old sect head had to stop. Xueqi was silent. Shangguan Xian continued. In addition, according to the information I have, this City Lord Yi has not only obtained the recognition of the former God Lord of the God race, but also the recognition of the Underworld King of the Underworld race. These two former super overlords all recognize him. There is also another person, Jian Zizai. Jian Zizai. Xueqi raised his eyebrows slightly. She is still here? Shangguan Xian nodded. She is probably the person behind Yi Xian, but this subordinate is not completely sure. This City Lord Yi seems to have a lot of backers. However, what is certain is that this Jian Zizai has a close relationship with him. Jian Zizai. From the God race to this era, there were two super amazing geniuses. In front was Jian Zizai. Behind was Xueqi. As for who was more monstrous, no one knew. At this time, Tendo suddenly said, You are right, he has a lot of backers. This guy is just a second generation. He only relies on shouting when fighting. Shangguan Xian, Chapter 642. Within the hall. Seven suddenly looked at Shangguan Xian. Where is he now? Shangguan Xian said solemnly. Your Majesty, after City Lord Yi left that day, he returned to Divine Martial City first. At this moment, he is no longer in Divine Martial City. As for where he went, I don't know. Seven nodded. Contact him. Shangguan Xian bowed slightly. Understood, I will take my leave. After she finished speaking, she was about to leave. At this moment, Seven suddenly said, How is the Shangguan family now? Shangguan Xian lowered her head slightly. Everyone in the family, including grandfather, has never left the family. We have never disobeyed the orders of the previous emperor. Shangguan family. This family was once famous in the God Kingdom. Unfortunately, the Shangguan family head, Shangguan Tian, made a huge mistake and was killed by the previous Divine Lord. Not only that, but the entire Shangguan family was imprisoned by the previous Divine Lord, and they weren't allowed to step out of the Shangguan estate. The once most prominent family was far away from the center of power in the God Kingdom overnight. This was a huge blow to the Shangguan family. It could be said that if this went on, in less than 10 years, the Shangguan family would completely decline and become a third-rate power. At this moment, Seven suddenly said, From now on, the Shangguan family's ban is lifted. Your Shangguan family can fight for everything that once belonged to the Shangguan family. Shangguan Xian was slightly stunned when she heard this. In the next moment, she hurriedly knelt down and said with a trembling voice, Thank you, Your Majesty. Seven's words had undoubtedly given the Shangguan family a new lease on life. Because in the God Kingdom, the Shangguan family was gradually declining, and they didn't dare to develop as they were afraid of drawing the displeasure of the Divine Lord. Now that Seven had lifted the ban on the Shangguan family, it was really a new lease on life for the Shangguan family. Seven looked at Shangguan Xian. You may leave. Shangguan Xian stood up and bowed respectfully before leaving. Seven looked at the Tendo. Tell me your conditions. The Tendo was silent for a long time, and then he said, Only one. I am still the Tendo, and I won't submit to your God Kingdom. I am equal to you, and we are in a cooperative relationship. Seven was silent. Tendo continued, I can give up Tendo's essence, but I'll be in charge of all spirit beasts in the Chaosverse. I won't participate in the internal affairs of your divine kingdom, nor will I interfere with the struggles between humans and other races. If you agree, I'm willing to fight alongside you and defend the Chaosverse against the invasion of Xianhuang world. Seven thought for a long while and then nodded.
Okay. Tendo nodded. All right. With that, she got up and left. After the Tendo left, Seven walked out of the hall and very quickly, she disappeared. Soon, she arrived at the top of a mountain range. Tianji sect. This celestial arcanum sect could be said to be a very special sect in the Divine Kingdom. This was because this sect had too much information. There was almost nothing they didn't know. Xueqi came to a large hall and an old man walked out. Tianji sect's current sect head, Mu Yun, knew about it. Seven looked at Mu Yunji. Send orders to the Dao Execution Army to return immediately. The Dao Punishment Army. Hearing this, Mu Yunji's expression changed. Your Majesty. Actually, the strongest army in the Divine Kingdom wasn't Lord Shen Wu and the Dark Guards but the Dao Punishment Army. When Wu Anning killed Tendo, he established an army, which was the Dao Punishment Army. It was meant to kill Tendo. Moreover, this army had vanished without a trace after Wu Anning had annihilated the Heavens Dao. Many people said that Wu Anning disbanded the Dao Punishment Army, but he didn't. These people existed in another way. The Dao Punishment Army. They were loyal to the Divine Kingdom monarch and only listened to his orders. Only the Divine Kingdom monarch could make these people return. Seven said softly, no matter how far, you have to return immediately. Mu Yunji bowed slightly and left. A moment later, Seven disappeared. Great Void Sword Sect, in front of the hall. Jian Taishu stood quietly. He had waited for 18 days. At this moment, his body was becoming more and more illusory, and he would vanish completely in at most a day. Time passed bit by bit. On the second day, Jian Taishu's body was becoming more and more illusory. Right when he was about to vanish completely, the door to the hall suddenly opened, and Yi Xian walked out. He was slightly stunned when he saw Yi Xian, and then a smile appeared on his face. Congratulations! As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished completely, and only a black sword-shaped seal remained. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the black sword seal appeared in his hand. What's this? The Demon Lord said, the Great Void Sword Seal, a treasure at the peak of the Dao realm. If swordsmen were to use it, then it would be able to display might that surpasses the Dao realm. Yi Xian sized up the sword seal in his hand carefully. At this moment, the sword seal suddenly transformed into a ray of light that entered the space between his brows. Bang! A powerful strand of sword intent suddenly surged out from within his body. It wasn't his sword intent. Yi Xian was shocked in his heart. Senior, does this sword seal contain someone else's sword intent? The Demon Lord said, yes, you can utilize this sword intent at the critical moment, and it can increase your combat strength by at least 40%. This is much more powerful than your dragon soul. Yi Xian smiled. Good stuff. As he spoke, he put the Great Void Sword seal away, and then he turned around and bowed slightly to the hall. Seniors, thank you. Sword God. Almost 20 days of comprehension had allowed him to enter the divine realm from the saint realm. Moreover, he could be said to have experienced too much during these 20 days. Every sword intent represented a supreme sword Dao, and these different sword Daos allowed him to understand that even though sword Daos led to the same goal by different means, there were still differences. On the path of sword Dao, even though the end was the same, there were thousands of paths that led to the end. Even though he had chosen one path, if he could see the path that others had chosen, then he would definitely gain a lot. To put it simply, it was learning from others' strengths to make up for their weaknesses. And this time, his harvest was very, very big. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the Executing Heaven Sword appeared in his palm. A moment later, the Executing Heaven Sword transformed into a ray of light that shot into the sky. OM! A sword hum shook the sky. The Executing Heaven Sword circled ceaselessly above Yi Xian's head, and rays of light appeared incessantly above Yi Xian's head. Sword God. I'm my own God. Yi Xian gazed at the Executing Heaven Sword in the sky. With his current strength, it shouldn't be difficult for him to kill an Emperor Realm expert. As if he'd thought of something, he suddenly opened his palm, and a dark sword box appeared in front of him. There were a total of 9 Dao Realm swords within the box. These 9 swords belonged to the 9 seniors of the Great Void Sword Sect in the hall. This sword box was also a treasure of the Great Void Sword Sect. The Great Void Sword box contained a sword formation within it, the ultimate sword formation. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment,
and then he activated the sword formation. In an instant, 9 rays of light shot into the sky from the swordsman. Hiss! Hiss! In an instant, the entire sky was sliced into countless pieces. Within the sword formation, everything was destroyed. Yi Xian said softly, "This sword formation is amazing." The demon lord said, "Let's go." Yi Xian put away the sword formation, and then he said, "Senior, are there any other powers in this universe? Especially powerful ones?" The demon lord said, "What do you want to do?" Yi Xian said seriously, "I think many powers must have been destroyed before they could pass on their legacy. I feel that I have a responsibility to help them, so that their legacy can be passed on. I will not shirk from this." The demon lord fell silent for a moment, and then he said, "You really are extraordinarily strong." "Yi Xian," at this moment, the demon lord said, "there is a place. However, the members of the demon race don't really like that place. If you go there and there are still people alive, you might be in danger. Do you want to go? Of course, they might have no choice but to pass on their legacy to you. After all, there might not be any more living people coming to that place." Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, "Let's go and give it a try." The demon lord said, "Head north." Yi Xian nodded, and then he flew up on his sword. Now, his speed was at least 5 times faster than before. It could be said that his current strength was much stronger than before. Most importantly, his physical body was that of a Thr-cranked body. His current physical body was even stronger than a dragon's. In a short while, Yi Xian arrived at a mountain range. At this moment the demon lord said, "We're here." Yi Xian stopped and looked around. He was surrounded by mountains, and he was as small as a grain of sand. Yi Xian asked, "Senior, what is this place?" The demon lord said, "The Immortal Tao sect." Yi Xian asked, "Is it very powerful?" The demon lord said, "Before I appeared on this continent, they were the strongest in this world. Their status was equivalent to the god nation in the chaotic universe." Yi Xian nodded slightly. "Senior, have you been to the Black-Yellow Great World?" The demon lord said, "I wanted to go there, but I didn't because of some things. This place is not simple. Many experts from other worlds want to go there after leaving their worlds." Yi Xian asked, "Why?" The demon lord said, "People strive for greater heights." Hearing this, Yi Xian understood. The Black-Yellow Great World was the strongest world in the 4-dimensional universe. The martial arts civilization there was definitely far superior to other worlds. If he wanted to improve, going there was definitely the best choice. The demon lord said, "Let's go to the main peak and try our luck." Yi Xian nodded and flew up on his sword. In a short while, he passed several mountains and arrived at the main peak of the Immortal Tao sect. There was a large hall on the main peak. However, it was covered in weeds. At a glance, it was very desolate. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian sighed with emotion. He could imagine how prosperous this place was in the past, but now, Yi Xian shook his head and withdrew his thoughts. He glanced around, and it was extremely quiet. There was no sign of life at all. The demon lord said, "Looks like you came here for nothing." Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he suddenly said loudly, "Did anyone from the Immortal Tao sect leave behind a soul or a clone? If you don't come out, I'll leave. Once I leave, you'll suffer a great loss." The demon lord. Chapter 643. After Yi Xian spoke, there was still no movement around. Yi Xian's face sank. "I'm really leaving." There was still no response. Yi Xian sighed and turned to leave. At this moment, footsteps suddenly sounded from behind him. Yi Xian stopped and turned around. In front of him stood a woman in a white dress. The woman looked to be in her 20s. She wore white and was very beautiful. Yi Xian bowed slightly. "Greetings, senior." The woman looked at Yi Xian. "You're from the demon sect." Demon sect. Yi Xian's heart skipped a beat. She could tell that he was a demon at a glance. The woman looked at Yi Xian. "Your body has been modified by the ancient demon blood, but you're also a swordsman. Are you from the Great Void Sword sect or the demon sect?" Yi Xian said in a deep voice. "Both." "Both." The woman sized up Yi Xian. "It seems that both the demon sect and the Great Void Sword sect have chosen you.
Yi Xian nodded. The woman said indifferently, "Why did you come to my immortal Dao sect?" Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then said softly, "I'm just here to take a look." The woman looked at Yi Xian. "See?" Yi Xian nodded. The woman said, "Then let's go." Yi Xian did not leave. The woman asked, "Why?" Yi Xian said seriously, "Senior, Junior came this time not only to take a look, but also to ask, do you need a successor?" Saying so, he pointed at himself. "If you do, I think I'm pretty good. You can consider it." "Demon Lord." The woman looked at Yi Xian. After a while she said, "You're not modest at all. We do need a successor, but we won't look for you." Yi Xian asked, "Why?" The woman said, "You are the successor of the demon sect." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Are the people of the demon sect bad people?" The woman looked at Yi Xian. "My immortal Dao sect will not give our inheritance to someone from the devil sect." Yi Xian was silent. The woman said, "Leave. Even if my immortal Dao sect's inheritance is destroyed, I won't give it to someone from the devil sect." With that, she turned to leave. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Senior, let me recommend someone to you." The woman looked at Yi Xian. "Don't tell me that you're the one I recommended." Yi Xian replied, "How is that possible? My skin is not that thick." The woman said indifferently, "No, you're not that thick." Yi Xian was speechless. The woman asked, "Who do you recommend?" At this time, Yi Xian suddenly returned to the World Prison Pagoda, the 5th floor. At this moment, Yi Ling was cultivating on the 5th floor. Yi Xian walked in front of Yi Ling. Yi Ling opened her eyes. "Big brother?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "Let's go." With that, he pulled Yi Ling out of the World Prison Pagoda. The moment Yi Ling appeared, the white-clothed woman's gaze fell on her. Looking at Yi Ling, the white-clothed woman was surprised. "You," Yi Xian quickly said. "Senior, my little sister is not bad, right?" The white-clothed woman ignored Yi Xian and stared at Yi Ling. After a while, she walked in front of Yi Ling and said softly, "Are you willing to inherit my immortal Dao sect's inheritance?" Yi Ling blinked and then looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian quickly nodded. Yi Ling nodded. "I'm willing." The white-clothed woman smiled slightly. "Good. Come with me." With that, she pulled Yi Ling away. Yi Xian hurried to follow him. The white-clothed woman brought Yi Ling to a large hall. Yi Ling stood in front of the door. The woman was also in front of the door. Inside the hall, Yi Ling was sitting cross-legged on the ground. There was a ball of white light above her head. The white-clothed woman suddenly asked, "She's your little sister?" Yi Xian nodded. The white-clothed woman said calmly, "Why are you here?" Yi Xian said, "We're here to look for opportunities." The white-clothed woman looked at Yi Xian. "You're not from this cosmos. Where are you from?" Yi Xian said, "The chaotic cosmos, a very distant place." The white-clothed woman frowned slightly. "The periphery of this cosmos has been destroyed by the powerhouses of the mysterious origin world. Ordinary people can't enter." Yi Xian said with a smile, "Someone sent me here." The white-clothed woman still wanted to ask something. Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, "Senior, we're just here to look for opportunities. We won't do anything bad." The white-clothed woman looked at Yi Xian. "After she leaves, can she establish an immortal Dao sect in your world?" Yi Xian fell silent. Establishing a sect. This wasn't a simple matter. The white-clothed woman said, "Can't I?" Yi Xian said, "You can. However, I can't guarantee what this immortal Dao sect will become in the future." The white-clothed woman said, "She obtained the inheritance of my immortal Dao sect. Her future achievements won't be bad." Yi Xian nodded. He looked at the distant hall. He would always protect Yi Ling. However, he understood that Yi Ling had to be strong enough herself. Yi Ling had obtained the inheritance of the immortal Dao sect and had Aiwe's guidance. Her future achievements would definitely not be bad. Time passed by quickly. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. At dusk, Yi Ling walked out from the hall. As soon as Yi Ling walked out, she ran over to Yi Xian and handed over 2 spatial rings with excitement. "Big brother, so many Dao realm treasures. So many." The white-clothed woman was speechless.
Yi Xian glanced at the white-clothed woman, and then he spoke seriously. Right, they're all yours. Big brother won't have a single one. The white-clothed woman's expression softened slightly. She walked over to Yi Ling and spoke softly. From now on, you're the sect master of the Immortal Tao sect. I hope that no matter what happens in the future, the Immortal Tao sect's martial Tao civilization will continue. Is that all right? Yi Ling looked at the white-clothed woman and nodded. I'll establish an Immortal Tao sect in the future and pass down its inheritance. The white-clothed woman smiled. All right. Also, you must be careful of the Xuanhuan Great World. Back then, one of our disciples joined the Xuanhuan Great World. If they find out that treasure is with you, they'll definitely pay any price to find you. So, you must be careful, understand? Yi Ling looked at Yi Xian. I'm not afraid. My big brother will protect me. Yi Xian nodded. With me here, no one can harm my little sister. Yi Ling smiled sweetly. The white-clothed woman looked at Yi Xian. He was a super genius of our Immortal Tao sect back then. He became an emperor before the age of 18. Now, he's probably even more unfathomable. Yi Xian said indifferently. Emperor? When I was 18, I killed no less than 10 Emperor Realm experts. Yi Ling was speechless. The white-clothed woman looked at Yi Xian. After a while, she shook her head and looked at Yi Ling. Take care. Perhaps we'll meet again one day. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, Senior, you're still alive? The white-clothed woman glanced at Yi Xian. Glancing at Yi Xian, he said, I don't want to talk to you. With that, her body gradually turned illusory. Yi Xian was speechless. Yi Ling bowed deeply to the white-clothed woman. The latter said softly, Don't let anyone see that treasure. Understand? With that, she deliberately looked at Yi Xian. Then, her body completely turned illusory and disappeared. After the white-clothed woman left, Yi Ling suddenly looked at Yi Xian. She opened her right hand and a palm-sized jade door appeared in her palm. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. This is? At this moment the demon lord suddenly said, The Immortal Tao Mystic Door. Our world has 2 super divine treasures. Kid, this door is not simple. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, How is it not simple? The demon lord said, This Immortal Tao Mystic Door is the trump card of the Immortal Tao sect. Not only does it contain the powerful martial inheritance of the Immortal Tao sect, but it also has a super great formation. Once this formation is activated, it can easily destroy this world. This is not the main point. The main point is that there is something that many cultivators dream of. The Immortal Spirit Holy Spring. This thing can reconstruct one's spirit root and fundamentally change one's physique. This thing is very heaven-defying, especially for cultivators above the Emperor Realm. Because after reaching the Emperor Realm, it is too difficult to go further. And this Immortal Spirit Holy Spring can help people break through the shackles of the Emperor Realm. At this point, he paused for a moment before continuing. This profound gate of the Immortal Tao is also a defensive treasure. In any case, it's a very powerful treasure. It can be said that the essence of the entire Immortal Tao is in this gate. Yi Xian asked, Is it better than my world prison pagoda? After a moment of silence, the demon lord suddenly said, Will you die if you don't fight? Bang! Yi Xian was sent flying. Yi Ling was stunned. Then she hurriedly flew to Yi Xian and helped Yi Xian up. Brother, are you okay? Yi Xian smiled. I'm fine. Yi Ling nodded slightly. Brother, do you want it? As she spoke, she handed the door to Yi Xian. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. This is a gift from the Immortal Tao sect. Remember, this is their kindness. We brother and sister will always remember this kindness. When we go back, brother will think of a way to help you build an Immortal Tao sect and make you the sect master. Sect master. Hearing this, Yi Ling's eyes lit up. Then brother, what will you do? Yi Xian said, I will be the sect master's brother. Haha. Yi Ling also covered her mouth and laughed. Soon, Yi Xian left with Yi Ling. Back to the chaotic universe. This time it could be said to be full of gains. Yi Xian brought Yi Ling along as he moved swiftly through the spatial tunnel. Yi Xian said softly, I wonder if Miss Ayu has found Yanjia. Tao Law. This Tao Law was also the core of the prison pagoda. Moreover, He really wanted to open the 7th level. The 7th level contained an unparalleled martial technique. If he learned the immeasurable sword, then with his current strength, would anyone in this starry sky be able to take a strike from him? In the chaotic universe, in a certain starry sky, a tombstone floated silently. The tombstone had split open from the middle, and there was a spatial tunnel within it. The tunnel was so deep that the end couldn't be seen. During this period, the Divine Kingdom had sent experts to destroy this tombstone, but all of them had failed. Even the executing heaven sword couldn't damage this tombstone, let alone other treasures. Therefore, the Divine Kingdom had given up on destroying this tombstone. Right at this moment, a man suddenly walked out from the tombstone. Chapter 644. Behind the middle-aged man were 2 mysterious men in dark golden robes. There were only 3 of them. The middle-aged man glanced around and said softly, "The spiritual energy in this chaotic universe is really abundant." He smiled. "It's a good place. It can make up for the missing spiritual energy in the North universe." Behind the middle-aged man, one of the mysterious men said, "Envoy, according to the information, this universe is not simple." The middle-aged man smiled. "How is it not simple?" The mysterious man said, "There seems to be an unknown expert here." Unknown expert. The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes and his expression gradually turned solemn. The so-called unknown expert was so powerful that it was unknown. In the Black Origin Great World, the number of experts who had reached the unknown realm could be counted on one hand. After a moment of silence, the middle-aged man said in a deep voice, "Do you know who it is?" The mysterious man shook his head. "I only know it's a swordsman, and there seems to be more than one of them." The middle-aged man frowned. Why would such an expert come to a world like this? The mysterious man shook his head. "I don't know. Anyway, it's better to be careful." The middle-aged man nodded. "Of course. I came here for that treasure and to see how the spiritual energy in this world is." The corners of his mouth curled up. "The spiritual energy in this universe is excellent." The mysterious man reminded, "That treasure." The middle-aged man nodded and said, "Let's go to Xueqi City and take a look." With that, he disappeared on the spot. Soon, the middle-aged man and the other 2 appeared in the sky above Xueqi City. The middle-aged man looked down at the city, and a powerful pressure enveloped the entire city. Everyone in the city was shocked. The middle-aged man looked down. "Is Yi Xian here?" At this moment, a woman appeared in front of the middle-aged man. It was Lanxiu. And Lanxiu looked at the middle-aged man and was about to speak when a man appeared beside her. It was Yi Xian. And Lanxiu was slightly stunned when she saw Yi Xian, then she said softly, "You're back." Yi Xian nodded. "Let me handle it." He looked at the middle-aged man. "From the Black Origin Great World?" The middle-aged man smiled. "Yes. Have you heard of us?" Yi Xian nodded. "I have. It is said that your world is a very, very powerful world." As he spoke, he flipped his right hand and a sword of the Tao realm appeared in his hand. "Expert from the Black-Yellow Great World, do you dare to stand and receive my sword? If you can take it, I'll give you that treasure with both hands." The middle-aged man glanced at the sword in Yi Xian's hand and said with a smile, "What's the harm in taking a strike from you?" Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "I'm not joking. You might die with this strike of my sword." The middle-aged man laughed. "You? And the sword in your hand? Come, let alone one sword strike, even if it's 10, what's the harm?" Behind the middle-aged man, a mysterious person suddenly said, "Don't be careless." The middle-aged man smiled. "Don't worry, it's just a small swordsman from a small world. Besides, a Tao realm sword can't hurt me." As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. "Come on." Yi Xian nodded, then leaped in front of the middle-aged man and slashed down with his sword. The middle-aged man raised his right arm to block. This time, he did not use his full strength, only less than 50% of his strength. Just as Yi Xian's sword was about 10 inches away from the middle-aged man's head, the sword in his hand suddenly changed into the executing heaven sword. Almost at the same time, the middle-aged man's expression changed, but it was too late. The sword slashed down. Boom! The middle-aged man's body instantly disintegrated, leaving only his soul. However, his soul was directly locked in place by a mysterious force. The middle-aged man was stunned. Then his face instantly turned ferocious.
You cheated. Yi Xian said seriously. What cheated?
Don't talk nonsense.
The middle-aged man stared at Yi Xian.
What sword is that?
Yi Xian smiled.
Heaven's execution. The middle-aged man took a deep breath.
What a good heaven's execution. But do you think you've won like this?
Let me tell you, even if only your soul is left, you're still an ant in front of me. As soon as he finished speaking, his soul suddenly trembled violently, and a powerful force vibrated from his soul.
At this moment, Yi Xian raised his hand and slashed.
One sword to fix the soul.
In an instant, the middle-aged man's body became illusory.
At this moment, the middle-aged man was stunned. That sword had destroyed his soul so easily.
How was that possible?
Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man who was becoming more and more illusory.
I told you, if this sword of mine goes down, you might die.
Just as the middle-aged man was about to say something, Yi Xian waved his right hand and the soul-suppressing sword directly absorbed his soul.
Yi Xian looked at the remaining two mysterious men.
One of them was about to make a move, but was stopped by the other.
His physical body has been named Emperor, and his sword Dao has become divine. We can't match him. Yi Xian was about to make a move when the two suddenly disappeared.
They were extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the end of the vast starry sky.
However, Yi Xian did not let them go.
He stomped his right foot, and his whole body turned into a sword light that shot into the sky.
Soon, Yi Xian chased the two into the endless starry sky, and the two directly entered the tombstone.
Just as Yi Xian was about to rush in, the voice from the 6th floor suddenly sounded.
Did you get carried away? Yi Xian hurriedly stopped and looked at the tombstone. Fortunately, he did not rush in. If he had rushed in and directly rushed to the black-yellow great world, he would really be sending himself to death.
Yes.
As if thinking of something, Yi Xian said, Senior, with your strength, can you shatter that black-yellow great world with a slap?
The demon lord was silent for a moment, and then said, Do you think I can?
Yi Xian smiled sheepishly.
Not really, haha. Bang!
Yi Xian suddenly flew out, and this time, he flew nearly 1,000 feet away. At this moment, the 6th floor suddenly said, You have to suppress your demonic nature. This demonic nature will make you even more shameless, and it will make you even more annoying. So, I hit you for your own good, understand? Yi Xian. At this moment, a woman appeared in front of Yi Xian. Tendo. Yi Xian looked at the Tendo.
He did not say anything, but the executing heaven's sword had already appeared in his hand.
He did not forget that this Tendo had been plotting against him. The Tendo looked at Yi Xian.
You have become stronger. Yi Xian said. Can't I?
The Tendo looked at Yi Xian, but did not say anything. Yi Xian turned and left. At this moment, the Tendo appeared in front of Yi Xian again. She looked at Yi Xian. You should leave the chaotic universe and go to another universe.
Yi Xian asked. Why?
The Tendo looked straight at Yi Xian.
Because you have that supreme treasure on you.
If you do not leave, the people from the black-yellow great world will definitely come here. And if you leave, they will turn their attention away from the chaotic universe. Yi Xian was silent.
The Tendo said in a low voice, Yi Xian, if you stay here, you will harm everyone in the chaotic universe.
Yi Xian looked at the Tendo. You mean, I should go out and attract their attention, right? The Tendo was silent.
Yi Xian smiled and said, Why don't you go and attract their attention? The Tendo said, I don't have that treasure.
Yi Xian said, So what if I have a treasure? If I have a treasure, I should go and die.
You say that I will harm the entire chaotic universe?
Fine. As he spoke, he pointed with a finger. The prison pagoda appeared in front of the Tendo. Yi Xian said, This is for you. Go and attract their attention. The Tendo looked at Yi Xian. She did not take the prison pagoda. Now, whoever took this treasure would become the target of the black-yellow great world. Seeing that the Tendo did not move, Yi Xian sneered. Tendo, are you so afraid of the people from the black-yellow great world? Aren't they people too? If they are people, then I am not afraid. Let me tell you, one day, I will fight my way to the black-yellow great world.
I will let them understand that I, Yi Xian, am not someone to be bullied. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the tombstone. Then why don't you come now? We will wait for you here. Yi Xian. Chapter 645. Yi Xian gazed at the tombstone. The spatial passageway was trembling, and it seemed like someone was coming over. The yellow world. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment, and then he said, Senior, can you destroy this tombstone? The demon lord said, It's pointless. They'll still find another way to get here if I destroy it. Yi Xian spoke solemnly, I need some time. He wasn't confident in his ability to deal with the people from Yellow World right now. The demon lord fell silent for a moment. I do need some time. Time. Yi Xian fell silent. What he needed now was time. Even though his physical body was at the Emperor realm and he'd attained the Sword God realm, the experts from Yellow World were definitely not ordinary experts. He wasn't confident in his ability to deal with experts of that level. Right at this moment, Yi Xian seemed to have thought of something, and the corners of his mouth suddenly curled up slightly. The demon lord said, What bad idea have you come up with this time? Yi Xian chuckled. Senior, you'll know soon enough. As he spoke, he gazed at the tombstone. The frequency at which the teleportation passageway trembled was increasing, and it was obvious that the experts on the other side were getting closer and closer. Tendo had an extremely solemn expression on her face as she gazed at Yi Xian. Aren't you going to run? Yi Xian spoke indifferently. I don't want to talk to you. Tendo was speechless. Around 15 minutes later, a powerful aura suddenly swept out from the tombstone. Obviously, they were about to arrive. Tendo took a deep and long glance at Yi Xian. She was about to leave. She didn't want to go head-on against them. However, she still wanted to see how Yi Xian would deal with it. Right at this moment, the tombstone suddenly trembled violently, and then a black shadow appeared in the depths of the teleportation passageway. It's coming out. Tendo's eyes narrowed slightly, and she was ready to flee at any moment. Because the aura of this person had surpassed the Emperor realm. Obviously, the people from the black-yellow great world didn't want to give Yi Xian any chance. And just as that person was about to come out, an illusory Xiaota suddenly appeared between Yi Xian's eyebrows. In the next moment, Yi Xian laughed sinisterly. Restrain! Withdraw! The prison pagoda appeared above the tombstone, and in the next moment, a blood-red light enveloped the tombstone. Then, the prison pagoda trembled violently, and the tombstone was sucked into the pagoda. On the side, Tendo was stunned. Could it be done like this? When the prison pagoda absorbed the tombstone, a black-robed man walked out from the tombstone. Of course, he was currently in the World Prison Pagoda. First level of the prison pagoda. The man in black looked around and frowned. Did I come to the wrong place? No. The black-clothed man narrowed his eyes and scanned the surroundings with a hint of vigilance. At this time, Yi Xian appeared in front of the black-clothed man. The black-clothed man looked at Yi Xian. You are Yi Xian. Yi Xian nodded. The black-clothed man scanned the surroundings. This is the treasure? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. The black-clothed man laughed. You have kept me here. Obviously, you want to use this treasure to deal with me, right? Yi Xian answered. Yes. The black-clothed man looked at Yi Xian. You are inviting a wolf into your house. At this point, he suddenly looked up. There is someone else. Yi Xian nodded. A very, very powerful senior. The black-clothed man laughed. Very powerful? Yi Xian nodded. Very, very powerful. Do you want to go and have a chat with him? The black-clothed man laughed. Do you know how powerful I am? Yi Xian shook his head. The black-clothed man said, The top-notch formidable martial artists of your world should be at the Arch realm. He should be at the Arch, right? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. The black-clothed man smiled. Even 10 Thearchs can't do anything to me. Yi Xian said in a low voice. You think so highly of me. I am only 18 years old. The black-clothed man looked at Yi Xian and laughed. From your bone structure, you should be 20 years old. Yi Xian, the black-clothed man continued, we have investigated you. Your talent is not bad. You have a lot of potential. Because of this,
We will not underestimate you. Since we want to kill you, we naturally have to send someone who is very confident. We do not want to send someone weaker for you to practice on. Yi Xian said in a low voice. Do you want to go to the 6th floor to take a seat? The black-clothed man looked up and laughed. It seems like the person on the 6th floor is your trump card. Wait a moment. I will go and take his head now. The moment he finished speaking, he disappeared. He went to the 6th floor. Yi Xian looked up at the 6th floor. At this moment, a bloody head suddenly fell in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian was stunned. It was the black-clothed man's head. Yi Xian's face was filled with shock. This, the demon lord suddenly said. He might have underestimated my strength. Yi Xian. The demon lord's strength. Yi Xian actually did not know how strong the demon lord was. But he was sure that he was very, very strong. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and asked, Senior, what cultivation realm are you at? The demon lord said, Cultivation realm has no meaning to us. Yi Xian hesitated and said, Senior, with your strength, you should be able to come out, right? The demon lord said, Yes. Yi Xian was about to speak when Xiao Ling-er's voice suddenly sounded from the 1st floor. Then why don't you leave? I have no place to plant spirit fruits. It's really annoying. Yi Xian, the demon lord smiled and said, Little girl, you can also come here and plant them. Xiao Ling-er said excitedly, Really? The demon lord said, Really? Xiao Ling-er flew directly to the 6th floor. At this moment, Yi Xian said, Senior, can you give my sister some pointers? Yi Ling. Whether it was him or Yi Ling, they both needed someone to give them pointers. Especially Yi Ling. She had obtained the immortal Dao sex inheritance, but if there was no one to guide her, it would be very difficult for her to absorb it on her own. The demon lord said, Yes. Hearing this, Yi Xian was delighted. Thank you, Senior. The demon lord suddenly said, This girl's talent is excellent. However, she has been protected by you so well that she has a serious dependence on you. This is not a good thing. You need to be careful. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. If there was a chance, he must let Yi Ling go alone to gain experience. A moment later, Yi Xian began to clean up the spoils of war. The black-clothed man had 3 storage rings. One of them had over 100 million divine gems. Over 100 million divine gems. Seeing so many divine gems, Yi Xian's entire body felt unwell. Was he this rich? But this was normal. An expert of this level must have a terrifying amount of wealth. With these 100 million divine gems, it could be said that only some of the super forces in God Nation could compare to his current wealth. As for the 2nd storage ring, there were some natural treasures. There were all sorts of supreme-grade treasures, spirit fruits, immortal herbs, and some extremely precious spirit pills. There were many types of spirit pills, some for healing, some for recovering mystic chi, and some for cleansing the marrow. Moreover, every single one of them was supreme grade. The value of these spirit pills was definitely more than the 100 million divine gems. Crystal. Yi Xian laughed excitedly in the prison pagoda. What a windfall! What a windfall! Yi Xian gave all the treasures such as spirit fruits and spirit herbs to Xiao Ling-er, which made Xiao Ling-er ecstatic. Seed. Xiao Ling-er immediately began to work. Looking at the busy Xiao Ling-er, Yi Xian laughed heartily. Not long after, these spirit fruits and spirit herbs would definitely be plentiful. He never doubted Xiao Ling-er's ability in growing spirit fruits. Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and looked at the 3rd storage ring. There were fewer things in the 3rd storage ring, only a little more than 30. But all of them were treasures of the Dao realm. Moreover, there was a spear among them. This spear was a treasure of the God realm. Among all of his treasures, this spear was second only to his heavenly punishment. As for the heavenly punishment, it could not be measured by its grade for now. Apart from this spear, there were 31 treasures of the Dao realm. 31. 9 of them were swords. Yi Xian wasn't excited when he saw this, and he fell silent instead. He was rich. The wealth of this black-clothed man had completely exceeded his expectations. After a long time, Yi Xian shook his head and sighed. Being poor has limited my imagination. Yi Xian put all the treasures away. He would be able to do many things with this wealth. Strengthen martial god city. Regardless of whether it was Wu Yuan or the sword sect, he sincerely hoped that they could grow stronger and stronger. Moreover, he was the city governor of martial god city, so he had the responsibility to make these two powers better and stronger. Moreover, with these treasures, martial god city could definitely undergo a transformation. Meanwhile, the demon lord suddenly said, I can faintly sense that the 8th level is about to awaken. The 8th level. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, the 8th level? The demon lord said, yes, I have a feeling that it might be about to awaken. When this pagoda was sealed all those years ago, the stronger the person was, the stronger the seal would be. Now, because you've been using this pagoda frequently, those seals are loosening. So, the 8th level should be about to awaken as well. Yi Xian spoke solemnly. Senior, do you know what the 8th level is? The demon lord said, I can't spy on it. Yi Xian fell silent for a long time, and then he said, do you think the 8th level will do something to me? The demon lord said, who knows? However, I think it might. Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. Why? The demon lord said, because you really need a beating most of the time. Yi Xian was speechless. A short while later, Yi Xian left the pagoda of prison. He didn't care about the 8th or 9th level now. He had a greater enemy, and it was the black-yellow great world. After Yi Xian came out, the Tendo still hadn't left. She looked at Yi Xian. Where is he? Yi Xian said indifferently, I dealt with him with a single sword strike. The Tendo looked straight at Yi Xian. Do you think I'm stupid? Yi Xian said indifferently, his corpse is in the pagoda. Why don't you come with me to take a look? The Tendo's eyes narrowed slightly, but she didn't speak. How would she dare to go in? Would she be able to come out once she went in? Yi Xian didn't pay attention to the Tendo. He waved his right hand, and the tombstone appeared in front of him again. The Tendo said in a low voice, What are you doing? Yi Xian looked at the Tendo, and the latter said coldly, Since you can take it away, why did you release it? Don't you know that people from the black-yellow great world can teleport here? Yi Xian said angrily, So what if they teleport here? Can't they come over? What right do you have to stop them from coming over? It's their freedom to come over. Freedom, do you understand? Chapter 646. The Tendo gazed at Yi Xian. Is there something wrong with you? Yi Xian paid no attention to the Tendo, and he just turned around and walked away. The Tendo's expression was extremely unsightly. After a long time, the Tendo took a deep glance at the direction Yi Xian had left towards. Even now, she didn't know what had happened to those fellows from Black-Yellow Great World. But she had no doubt that they wouldn't end up well. Because Yi Xian was still alive. She was even more fearful of Yi Xian. When Yi Xian was shameless, he was harmless, and no one could sense how dangerous he was. But if he was serious, he was definitely a very cruel and merciless person. Danger! At this moment, she was gradually beginning to feel that Yi Xian was a dangerous figure. After a long moment of silence, the Tendo turned around and left. After Yi Xian returned to Divine Martial City, he immediately went to look for Enlancio, and then he opened his palm to reveal a spear. A spear at the God realm. Enlancio was slightly stunned. This is... Yi Xian smiled. I just obtained it. It's more suitable for you, so I'll give it to you. Enlancio glanced at the spear. It's too precious. Yi Xian was slightly displeased. What precious? In my heart, nothing can compare to you and Ling, Enlancio gazed at Yi Xian, but she didn't say anything and just put the spear away. Yi Xian grinned, and then he turned around and left. Meanwhile, Enlancio suddenly said, I went to the Divine Kingdom to challenge an Emperor Realm expert. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, How was it? Enlancio gazed at Yi Xian, I won. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, You're that strong. Enlancio nodded, and then she glanced at the spear in her hand. With this, I should be able to kill an Emperor Realm expert with ease. As she spoke, she gazed at Yi Xian. Call me the next time you fight. With that, she turned around and left. In the same place, Yi Xian remained silent for a long time before leaving. He had found Mo Xie. The current Mo Xie had also reached the Tendo realm. Only one realm lower than the Star Lord and the others.
It had to be said that Mo Xie was also very strong. Mo Xie glanced at Yi Xian. "You're back." Yi Xian smiled and then waved his right hand. More than 20 Tao realm-level treasures appeared in front of Mo Xie. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Pick a suitable one." Mo Xie looked at Yi Xian in astonishment. Yi Xian smiled and said, "What are you waiting for? Pick one that suits you." Mo Xie fell silent for a long time, and then he chose a claw-type Tao realm treasure. Yi Xian put away the rest of the treasures and turned to leave. Mo Xie looked at the departing figure and did not speak for a long time. Before long, Yi Xian found Mo Yunqi and the others. Yi Xian placed those Tao realm treasures in front of them. "Pick one." Mo Yunqi glanced at Yi Xian. "Bandit Yi, did you rob someone?" Yi Xian's face darkened. "Am I that kind of person?" Mo Yunqi said seriously, "Yes, how could you be that kind of person? Rob. That's not your style. You must have stolen it." Yi Xian, at this moment Bai Zhe suddenly said, "You talk too much nonsense." As he spoke, he directly chose a defensive treasure. A defensive treasure. He mainly cultivated the physical body, so defensive treasures were very useful to him. At this moment, Jiang Jiu suddenly said, "God Nation sent someone over." Yi Xian looked at Jiang Jiu, and Jiang Jiu said solemnly, "They want some of their merchant associations to enter our divine martial city. What do you think?" Yi Xian said, "Is Baiji's merchant association the only one in our divine martial city?" Jiang Jiu nodded. "Only her." Yi Xian said, "Then don't let anyone else in." Jiang Jiu looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian smiled. "Baiji has helped us a lot." Jiang Jiu nodded. "Understood." Yi Xian said with a smile, "Everyone should choose a treasure that suits them." Soon, Jiang Jiu and the others chose their own treasures. Yi Xian chatted with them for a while, and then left. Cultivation. In the following time, Yi Xian began to cultivate like crazy. It was worth mentioning that while Yi Xian was cultivating, Tang Clan suddenly announced their allegiance to God Nation. Tang Clan's allegiance. One had to say that this news caused quite a commotion in the entire chaotic universe. One had to know that Tang Clan was once one of the overlords of this place. Now they were submitting to God Nation. Along with Tang Clan's announcement, the monster race also announced their allegiance. Out of the few powers, only Order Alliance didn't say anything. 3 days later, a little girl suddenly came to Divine Martial City. 7. Not far behind 7, there were 10 black-shirt men with blades by their waists. 7 walked into Divine Martial City, and the 10 of them wanted to follow. 7 shook her head. "Wait outside." The 10 of them bowed and left. After 7 entered Divine Martial City, she headed straight to the sword sect. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of her. 7 sized up Yi Xian, sword god. Yi Xian nodded. "I broke through not long ago." 7 nodded her head. "Congratulations." Yi Xian smiled. "Why are you free to come here today?" 7 said, "What do you think about Shenhuang Great World?" Yi Xian said solemnly, "I know a little about this place." 7 nodded. "What do you think?" Yi Xian said with a smile, "I will definitely fight with them. You know that I have no choice." Unless he gave up that treasure, otherwise, the experts of Shenhuang Great World wouldn't let him off. 7 said, "I have sent a batch of people from God Nation to rush back." Yi Xian looked at 7. "They are only targeting me." 7 shook her head. "They aren't just targeting you. Their target is the entire chaotic universe." Yi Xian kept silent. 7 said, "My men will pay attention to them. No matter how many or who they are, as long as they dare to step into my territory, I will make sure they won't be able to leave." As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian. "There is a team of secret guards in the God Nation. They are all assassins, and there are only 23 of them. They all have the ability to kill emperors. I will leave them to you." Yi Xian was stunned and then asked, "Hand them to me?" 7 nodded. "You are also an assassin. Especially that chaotic energy of yours, you can use it to hide them. With your help, even Emperor Realm experts won't be able to sense them." "Kill Emperor Realm experts," Yi Xian said solemnly. 7, this Shenhuang Great World might be stronger than we think." 7 nodded. "I know. After saying that, she asked, "So what?" Yi Xian smiled. "Right, anyways we will just fight them." 7 nodded. "At most in 10 days, they will reach our world. You have to be prepared." After saying that, she got up and left. On the spot, Yi Xian was silent. 10 days. In 10 days, the people from Shenhuang Great World would arrive. Yi Xian said softly, "I wonder if Ayu has found Yanjia." After saying that, he turned around and left. Cultivate. There wasn't much time left. He needed to cultivate Burial Fist to the extreme. This Burial Fist was one of his trump cards now. Yi Ling, on the other hand, had advanced by leaps and bounds under the guidance of the elder from the 6th floor. This was because Yi Ling had already grasped the inheritance of the immortal Tao sect, and with the guidance of the 6th floor, her progress could only be described as terrifying. He would often exchange blows with Yi Ling. However, she was afraid of hurting him and didn't use her full strength at all. It was useless no matter how many times he said it. Yi Xian was helpless. Every time he sparred with her, it was like playing house. The 6th floor was helpless too. Yi Ling was good at everything but she lacked ferocity. In a fight between experts, there were many times when that kind of ruthlessness was required. 6 days later, Yi Xian, who was cultivating, suddenly left the prison pagoda. In the next moment, he transformed into a ray of light and shot into the sky. He saw 3 people in the sky. 3 familiar people. Ayu, Yanjia, and Yu Qi, who he hadn't seen for a long time. Yu Qi smiled when he saw Yi Xian. "Long time no see." Yi Xian smiled. "Master Yu Qi, it's great to see you." He really respected Yu Qi because Yu Qi had taken care of him a lot in the Pale Sword sect. As if he'd thought of something, Yi Xian looked at Yanjia. The latter sized up Yi Xian and nodded. "You're stronger than before." Yi Xian smiled. "Miss Yanjia, long time no see." Yanjia nodded and was about to speak when the prison pagoda suddenly appeared before her. It trembled slightly as if it was trying to say something. Yanjia smiled. "This pagoda's temper is much better than before." Ayu's face was expressionless. This stupid pagoda is getting more and more shameless after being with someone for so long. Yi Xian was speechless. Yanjia glanced at Yi Xian and smiled. "Let's not talk about that for now. Let's go open the 7th level." Yi Xian was delighted and hurriedly said, "You found the Tao laws of the 7th level?" Yanjia nodded. "Yes. However, she's unwilling to return." Yi Xian asked, "Why?" Yanjia said, "She has her own life now, and she doesn't want to return to this stupid pagoda. However, as the Tao laws of the 7th level, she has a way to remove the seal on the 7th level. So let's head there." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "All right." As he spoke, they entered the prison pagoda. The prison pagoda suddenly appeared before Yanjia, and it trembled violently as if it was trying to say something. Ayu suddenly said, "If she doesn't return, then she won't return. Understand?" The prison pagoda shook its head forcefully. Ayu raised his hand and slapped it. Bang! The prison pagoda was blasted flying. Ayu said, "Come, let's head to the 7th level." As soon as he finished speaking, they arrived at the entrance to the 7th level. Yanjia opened his palm, and a black seal suddenly flew out. It didn't take long for the black seal to fly into the 7th level, and a short moment later, the door to the 7th level suddenly opened. Xiao Ling charged in, and then everyone watched as she hugged the box on the 7th level. There was a skewer of candied fruits on the box. Xiao Ling grinned as she gazed at the box in her hand, and then she turned around and ran. Now she had 2 boxes. No one knew exactly what was within those boxes. Yi Xian walked over to the ancient book, and he just picked it up when it transformed into a ray of white light that entered the center of his forehead. The boundless sword. It didn't take long for countless pieces of information to surge into Yi Xian's mind. Meanwhile, the demon lord's voice resounded. "This sword technique. It disregards realms. From this moment onward, besides experts at my level, there's no one you can't kill. P.S. Ask for tickets." Chapter 647. The Immeasurable Sword. What was the immeasurable sword? Using the sword as a thought, using the thought as a sword. Wherever the thought is, the sword is. With a single thought,
I can launch a sneak attack and backstab an enemy within a 300 m radius. I can disregard any defense, any armor, any laws, any secret techniques, any divine abilities, any Tao laws, any restrictions of the world, and any realm. After killing the enemy, you can immediately enter a state of emptiness. You won't be restricted by the world, and you won't be able to detect any laws, secret techniques, or Tao laws. You can't touch any cause or effect. Needless to say, according to this description, the immeasurable sword was truly terrifying. Most importantly, he could enter a state of emptiness after killing the enemy. What did that mean? It meant that he could escape after killing the enemy. Yi Xian sat down cross-legged and started to cultivate the immeasurable sword. If he succeeded in cultivating this sword technique, it would be his strongest trump card apart from the prison pagoda. Yanjia and the others left silently. On the 5th floor, there were only 2 of them, Yanjia and Ayu. Yanjia spoke softly. Any news about Big Sister? Ayu shook her head. Yanjia spoke softly. What do you plan to do in the future? Ayu spoke indifferently. I don't want to stay here. I'll ask him to remove the restrictions on me once he's strong enough. Yanjia said. I'm afraid the pagoda won't agree. Ayu fell silent. Tao laws. There were a total of 10 Tao laws in the pagoda, and they represented the supreme laws of the world. The reason the prison pagoda was so powerful was because of those 10 Tao laws. Meanwhile, Yanjia spoke abruptly. The pagoda has changed quite a bit. Ayu shook her head. Its intelligence hasn't fully recovered yet. If it fully recovers. At this point, she didn't continue speaking. The prison pagoda. No one knew how terrifying this damn pagoda was. As if she'd thought of something, Ayu added. Actually, it reaped what it sowed. In the past, it thought that it could sweep through everything after coming out, but it was almost destroyed by those 3 people. If that woman hadn't shown mercy, it would probably never have woken up again. Yanjia nodded. Back then, when the World Prison Pagoda fought against those 3 people, the World Prison Pagoda had already lost. Although it wasn't completely erased, it still paid an extremely painful price. Ayu said softly. He's not bad. If he takes full control of the pagoda, we'll be able to regain our freedom. Yanjia said solemnly. I'm afraid it'll be very difficult. Ayu smiled and said. It's not difficult. Yanjia looked at Ayu. Ayu smiled and said. Do you know why this broken pagoda recognized him as its master? Yanjia said. This has always been something I've been curious about. Ayu said indifferently. This fellow has learned to be smart now. It could observe people's words and expressions, and not only that, it could also curry favor with people. The reason why it chose that brat to be the pagoda master was because of that plain-dressed woman. It wanted to lick that plain-dressed woman, and from the looks of it, it was very successful. When it was at its weakest, that woman helped it suppress the pagoda. A woman in a plain dress. Yanjia's expression gradually became serious. That woman isn't just ordinarily strong. Ayu also fell silent. A long time ago, the prison pagoda had brought their Tao laws to fight against the woman in the plain dress. At that time, it wasn't just the prison pagoda, even they were very proud, and they thought that no one in the 4th dimension was their match. However, at that time, they in the prison pagoda had almost disappeared. At this moment, Yanjia suddenly said, I feel that he isn't simple. Ayu looked towards the 7th floor. Him? Yanjia nodded. His identity is a bit strange. Ayu said solemnly. I know, but this has nothing to do with us. After he controls the pagoda, we will leave. He has already promised me. Yanjia smiled bitterly. I'm just afraid that the pagoda won't agree. If it recovers, besides those 3, no one can control it. Ayu smiled and said, Don't worry, that fellow will have a way. In terms of bluffing, the pagoda isn't his match. Moreover, with a plain-dressed woman here, this broken pagoda won't dare to act recklessly. Yanjia nodded slightly. I'm not very worried about this. What I'm worried about is that the pagoda has been exposed, and countless people will come to cause trouble for him. Ayu nodded. I'm also worried about this. Now, I just hope that he becomes stronger, and can protect himself. Yanjia suddenly asked, Do you know what the 8th and 9th floors are? Ayu shook his head. I don't. Yanjia spoke solemnly. Those 2 floors are definitely extraordinary.
Yu fell silent for a short while, and then he said, I suddenly realized that it isn't easy for that kid to survive.
Yanjia was speechless. The second floor. Xiao Ling sat before a spirit tree, and there were 2 boxes beneath it.
Both of them had been given to her by that furry little fellow.
However, she didn't open them.
She would only open them when she was in danger.
Xiao Ling gazed at the boxes for a long time, and then she grinned and continued planting spirit fruits. She'd obtained numerous new spirit fruits and herbs from Yixian, and they were much better than before. So, she wanted to plant a lot of them.
All of them were treasures.
Xiao Ling was extremely happy during this period of time. The 7th floor. Yixian sat cross-legged on the ground while numerous pieces of information flashed through his mind.
The boundless sword.
The more he understood the boundless sword, the more shocked Yixian was. This sword technique was too terrifying. If someone used it against him, then he wouldn't be able to resist it at all. Time trickled by just like that. 3 days later, Yixian, who was on the 7th floor, opened his eyes. In his eyes, 2 rays of sword light were flashing like lightning.
Meanwhile,
Yu and Yanjia appeared in front of Yixian.
Yu sized up Yixian.
Did you succeed?
Yixian shook his head.
Just a little bit more.
Yu asked.
A little bit?
Yixian nodded. I'll go somewhere else.
As soon as he finished speaking, he left the pagoda. It didn't take long for Yixian to arrive at the top of the mountain behind the sword sect. Yixian just stood there and looked down. The boundless sword. Actually, he'd succeeded in cultivating the boundless sword. However, it was still lacking a trace of charm. Boundless contained many things, such as kindness, sorrow, joy, resentment, hatred, killing, benevolence. It contained countless things. Yixian silently stood at the top of the mountain, looking down as he recalled the scenes in Qing City. Difficult. How difficult was it at that time? Because at that time, he and his little sister were still young, and it was extremely difficult to survive in a family like the Yi family, which was full of deceit. Especially at the beginning, he and his little sister almost starved to death several times. Since leaving Qing City until now, it had not been easy. Most of the time, he had a feeling that life was really bitter. There were also times when it was sweet, but most of the time, it was bitter. Living was not easy. After a long time, Yixian suddenly shook his head with a smile. Relieved. Now that he thought back to his time in Qing City, it was indeed very difficult. However, compared to what he was facing now, that difficulty was insignificant. He even somewhat missed the days in Qing City. At that time, he only needed to fight against the Yi family. But now, there were simply too many people to fight. However, in his opinion, the difficulties he encountered now would be the same as the difficulties he encountered in Qing City one day in the future. There was no obstacle that could not be overcome. Yixian turned and left. Divine Kingdom. In a large hall, Xueqi sat quietly, and in front of her was Shangguan Xian. Shangguan Xian said, Your Majesty, our people are ready. Xueqi nodded. Did we miss anything? Shangguan Xian shook her head. No. I just don't know how many people from the black-yellow great world will come. Xueqi said softly. We must win the first battle. Shangguan Xian nodded. If we win the first battle, our morale will definitely rise. However, this victory will definitely attract the attention of the black-yellow great world. Xueqi nodded slightly. I understand. Shangguan Xian bowed slightly and turned to leave. When she walked out of the hall, Shangguan Xian suddenly stopped. Not far in front of her, a man walked towards her. The person who came was Yixian. Seeing Yixian, Shangguan Xian smiled slightly. Greetings, Lord Yi. Yixian was slightly stunned, then said, You are. Shangguan Xian smiled. I am His Majesty's advisor, Shangguan Xian Yixian asked, What about Miss Nangong? Shangguan Xian hesitated, then said, She went back to the Eastern Wasteland world. Yixian said, You replaced her? Shangguan Xian nodded. Yes, I am afraid I will have to keep in contact with Lord Yi in the future. There may be many places where I will disturb you. Yixian smiled. Miss Shangguan is too polite. Shangguan Xian smiled slightly. Lord Yi, go and see His Majesty. Xian will leave first. With that, she turned and left. Yi Xian entered the hall, and there was only Xueqi in the entire hall. Xueqi sized up Yi Xian. You seem a little different. Yi Xian looked at Xueqi. Have you reached the transcendent sword god realm? Xueqi nodded. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Xueqi really wasn't a normal monster. Xueqi said, they should be here soon. Yi Xian was about to speak, but at that moment, the two of them turned their heads and looked outside the hall. Xueqi said softly, so fast. Yi Xian said, let me go meet them first. The moment he said that, he had already disappeared. Within the hall, Xueqi kept silent for a long while and then said, it has begun. In the darkness of the hall, a voice rang out. Understood. Yi Xian once again came to the starry sky. In front of the tombstone, Yi Xian stood quietly. Not far in front of him was the heavenly Tao. Tendo looked at Yi Xian and didn't say a word. Yi Xian didn't care about Tendo and just looked at the tombstone. Very quickly, 6 people appeared in the tunnel. 6 experts who surpassed Emperor Realm. When he saw this, Yi Xian didn't say a word and just took out the prison pagoda. In the next moment, Yi Xian kept the tombstone into the prison pagoda. Yi Xian immediately laughed complacently. Then he put away the prison pagoda, turned around, and disappeared. Not far away, Tendo kept silent for a long while and then said, what a cunning person. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.